So, street talk time then. We promise to try really hard to make it not be such a Ramon fest as it was last week. I know some people enjoyed it. Some people was like, oh, just shut up. If you don't like Coronation Street, don't watch it then. Nobody said that to us, but yeah, I kind of finished recording last week's Coronation Street just feeling a bit bad for how much we were ragging on it. But
I think you'll find I gave it 4.
I know you gave it 4. What was that? What did I give it? 2.5? Yeah. I'm not going to say straight off the bat here that I loved this week's Coronation Street a whole lot more. But I think it was just the sheer volume of policey hospitalness in last week's Coronation Street.
Were there any hospital and police scenes?
Oh yes, there certainly were this week. There most definitely were. I still think that this week's Corrie had quite a focus on the new characters as well. Some people were writing into us, and absolutely right. So you say whatever you think, saying, well, Coronation Street, what's wrong with having new people in it? Coronation Street needs new people to grow. I will not dispute that whatsoever. I just think that the balance last week was a little bit too far in the new character camp. They needed a few more of the oldies to balance out. We're not saying don't have new characters, of course.
Of course, well, we wouldn't even have an award for new characters if we didn't like them.
No. But yeah, this week was an okay week of Coronation Street. Let's find out what we thought about it once we've done the grand return of our clickbait section. Thank you very much, Jonathan, who sent us in some lovely clickbaity titles about this week's Coronation Street world for us to have a bit of a guessing game with. I'm going to read them out this week, Gemma, so you need to tell me what are our clickbait hunting journos hoping for. What are they getting across by these headlines? This is the first one from the Leicestershire Live. Coronation Street fans work out who will bring down Carl, and it's not Ronnie.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it could be anybody, but it is tangent.
Why
Yeah,
would
it's
it be
still somebody
Ronnie?
that's Ronnie and Carl this week, Coronation Street, they did lock horns a little bit, didn't they? They had a couple of scenes together with their car scam. I need somebody to bring down Carl because I'm not too happy with what he's getting up to.
I don't know the answer to this. I'm going to guess Abby.
No, it is not Abby.
Is it? Who else did it even interact with?
Well, this is what you need to think about because it is somebody that they have interacted with. Who else is involved in the story? It's
that lady?
No, not Fiona. You're going to kick yourself. Ryan. Yeah, now he's working at the hotel.
Oh.
He's got his eyes out.
I like Ryan, but I wouldn't say he's bright.
No, you don't need to be bright to bring down...
You need to be able to... Really?
He'll keep his eyes out, won't he? Yeah.
All right, then.
I think that Ryan could. I'm not loving this particular story. So whoever's going to bring it down, let's get there sooner rather than later, please. The Plymouth Herald says Coronation Street lose new love interest confirmed, and it won't end well. Who is Lou's
Gary.
new love interest? Correct.
Yes.
Yes. What made you say that?
Because he's the only man she's spoken to.
Well, it could have been Tim, couldn't it? Could have had a little
it could
Tim
have been
affair.
Tim, but I don't know. He seems like more of a. Well, no, he is a bit of a cheater because he was married.
I would say that on
out.
the whole, Tim is loyal, and he was somewhat tested. Well, he was suspected with Aggie at one point as well,
That's
wasn't
right.
he? But Gary apparently, according to a group of people on Facebook, which let's face it is where all these articles come from, are suggesting that maybe Lou and Gary are going to have a little bit of a fling. I would like to think that Gary wouldn't. Has he cheated before? Probably. I can't think. He's had so many relationships in the past. I think the chances are quite high.
During the surrogacy storyline.
Oh yeah, he did kind of get a bit
weird
with Tina, doesn't he? You're right. He did. Okay. I'd like to hope not. I'd like to think that Gary has turned a bit of a new leaf and now he's settled down.
Baby.
Maybe. Next up, Devon Live. I'd love to do Strictly, but there's one issue, says Coronation Street legend.
Right, so which channel? Strictly is ITV?
No, that's the BBC one. The ITV is Dancing on Ice, which has stopped now, so that would be the issue with this person doing that.
Okay. So it's because it's BBC?
No, that's not the reason.
They can't dance.
That is the reason. Yeah,
Okay.
This person cannot dance. The reason that they can't do it is because they don't think their dancing talents are up to scratch. Who is?
Who do I think
the
on
Coronation Street legend?
Who do I think is a legend who can't dance?
Do you want me to give you a clue?
Yeah, I think there's too many legends now.
My clue is I'm going to read you out the quote again, but in a different voice.
Oh, is it Helen Flanagan?
Yes, it is. I don't even need to read it out. Helen Flanagan has been asked about doing
Would you do
Strictly.
the voice? I'm sure a lot of people are annoyed.
I'd love to do Strictly, but there's one issue. I just can't dance, says Helen Flanagan. Yeah, sadly not. Okay.
That's the point of it, isn't it? You're not supposed to be able to dance.
Feels like it's
She's
been
giving it away.
I know.
But they all pretend they can't dance.
Finally, this is a quite interesting one. The Mirror, Deal or No Deal's mystery banker revealed as iconic Coronation Street actor. Now, have you ever watched an episode of Deal or No Deal through?
Yep,
I don't mind it, but I don't know how it managed to keep going for so long, because it really is every episode quite the same, isn't it?
In the UK, Noel Edmonds was the man who phoned the banker.
Mm-hmm. He's the host, and every couple of rounds
now,
you have to phone a banker to see how much money he's offering a contestant. I won't go into details, but that's about that.
I believe that I saw or heard or read that Noel Edmonds said that the banker was actually really the producer.
Yes.
And he actually was in charge of the money, and so it was genuinely a conversation about how much money they wanted to give the person.
This is very true, but who was that person who is an iconic Coronation Street actor?
So this person has been on Corrie and then gone into TV production.
Apparently so. You'll never guess it. I can't even remember the actor's name, to be honest. I can tell you the character that he played. Yes.
Is it Diggory Compton?
It is not Eric Potts, no.
Because he's a producer.
No. I'm just going to tell you.
Give me another clue.
Okay, this is the character who was a police detective on the show in the
know
late
who
90s.
It's Joe Deteen.
No, it is not Joe Deteen.
It is, because he investigated
I said in the late 90s.
Oh, I don't like to listen to the end of
my sentences.
I don't know.
He was also due to marry a character on Coronation Street in the late 90s, but the wedding was interrupted by quite an objection from another Corrie legend, dare I say.
I really have no...
It was the guy who played Alan McKenna, who was marrying Fiona, and this is when Jim was in, "Oh, don't do it, Fiona, don't marry him, Fiona, marry me." Alan McKenna, I can't remember what the actor is called, but apparently he was the banker in Deal or No Deal all those years. Who'd have thought it? Gemma's just desperately looking up Alan McKenna on her phone at the moment.
Glenn Hugel.
There you go.
He's got a banker's face.
Is it?
What do you think?
His face. Yeah, I can
Look
see
at that.
it.
He looks like the kind of guy who goes down to Canary Wharf and drinks champagne.
Right, let's get cracking.
Which is what I think a banker does.
Let's get cracking. We're talking about this week's Coronation Street. I've kind of bundled a lot of stories together into one again this week. Not as much as I did last week when there was literally just one story, but we will be continuing the Craig Tarrar story first, which I'm very glad at least one listener wrote to us on our Facebook group and appreciated the reference to that particular holiday camp in Scotland.
I was going to disparage you quite at length.
No, all I need is for one person to go with a storyline title, and I've done my job.
You've stolen my one.
I've stolen your one for Julie. I'm also calling the Craig Tarrar one Kit's Kid, which is a very low-hanging fruit one, because it was all about that. Gemma,
shouldn't Kit's kid be a kitten?
Yes, quite possibly.
Did we not say that already?
Gemma, I did steal your storyline title for Julie's funeral exit. Gemma, what are we calling this story?
Eulogy.
Eulogy?
Yes.
Is that everybody? Gemma came up with that just when we were watching it the other day, and I was like, I'll write that down.
I tell you what though, Coronation Street writers did come up with Carpe Diem.
Oh, they stole our other storyline title, didn't they, today?
They came up with it months before we even knew it was going to happen.
I don't care. I appreciated the reference to
but
the unintended reference to Conversation Street on today's Corrie.
I bet they'll be kicking themselves on the head eulogy.
I bet
she would have loved to have called it that, wouldn't she?
Totally. My favourite thing about Julie's funeral episode today was the fact that she was a closet Paul Heaton fan. Who knew?
He got 2 shout-outs.
I love Paul Heaton. I think he's awesome. I've mentioned him on the podcast before.
We've
been to see him in concert a couple of years ago. So the fact that Julie was also a big fan of him and the Beautiful South, I appreciated that. Got a couple of their songs on the radio in the road today.
But can I just say,
particularly old ones.
Exactly. Julie's not an act. Is she a Paul Heaton fan, or is she just a Beautiful South fan? Because that's different, isn't it?
Yeah, I would have quite enjoyed a few of his more modern tracks making appearances on tonight's episode, but alas, they went to the classic like Song for Whoever. That's him, isn't it? That's not Elton John. What am I thinking of? Oh no, that's your song. You know. Gemma's giving me funny looks. Let's move on.
Michael makes me listen to all the Paul Heaton songs.
I don't make you
I
listen
know
to
them all.
them. I don't make you listen to them. I occasionally put them on and then
I roll my eyes.
you roll your eyes because you're
I've
just
heard them a
massive
million
grunt.
times.
No, you haven't. Literally, you haven't.
I do like the songs. It's just you listen to albums. I don't like listening to albums. I listen to lots of different songs. But if you say we're listening to Paul Heaton, you put on a whole album, don't you?
Yeah. Or I've got a playlist with all the albums there together and I put them on random. That's kind of my go-to at the moment.
Right.
Never know what's going to come next.
But if Paul Heaton wants to come on the podcast, he can sing a song if he wants to.
Now he's got a mention, yeah. I'm sure he'll be very chuffed with
He's
himself.
now part of the Coronation Street universe.
Yeah, he exists.
He's been on. They've mentioned him before.
Have they?
Because I know we spoke about him before, but not because of us.
Oh, I don't know. We got the Dementia storyline coming up next, although Debbie was sadly very underused in this week's Coronation Street. I think she only appeared on Mondays. It was more all the shenanigans with Carla and Ronnie that took up most of the screen time there. And then we were finishing off, just because I didn't think it particularly fit into the Craig storyline, the Lisa and Carla little love fest that was on Monday's episode, Swengagement.
Swengagement,
yeah. Okay. Except they're not engaged, are they? This was a rough week. We said it on today's short that for people turning down proposals. 2 proposals we've had in the past week, and both of them the person has said like, nah, don't fancy it. Actually, that's rough. Heartache all round. But I'm sure we'll have more to say about that later on.
But just to remind everybody that if you are a listener and fan of Conversation Street, and you are also a fan of Swala, you are a cygnet, not a duckling.
Why is this?
Because they're swans. Swan.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're a Canadian, you're a gosling. And obviously Americans are Yankee Doodle ducklings.
We did get some feedback later on today about the whole Canada Goose thing. So keep your ears peeled for that.
Do you want me to do this because you don't like characters?
Yeah.
Well, I do.
Go on then. So what's been going on in the world of Kit Green and co this week, Gemma?
Okay, so this is the second memorial site they've had to set up at this precinct in the space of 5 months.
I know.
This was interesting to me because when they set up Mason's memorial, they put it on the opposite wall of where he was killed, and makes more sense to me to put it. This. They put it outside where the charity shop is, or like where the Chinese takeaway is.
Well,
I'm pretty sure
that's nearby the alley
there.
where he got stabbed, isn't it?
Yeah, but he died in the playground, didn't he? So I would have put it over there, but I was thinking at the time, like, why did they do it here and not like in the mouth of the precinct? And I realised this week it's because they were saving that for Craig.
Although, to be fair, Craig also didn't die in the mouth of the precinct, did he? He got clot round the head, just a bit
in the car park
over the way.
No, they need that for parking cars.
Yeah, that is
or
now. I think
vehicles.
That's become Britain's most dangerous precinct.
Yes,
in
definitely.
the space of 5 months. Say no more.
That's why they've got those flower pots. Everyone will be a dead person by the time the show finishes.
Tell you what, if Blanche was still around now, she'd probably want to get one of those flats so she could stare out the window. She'd be properly curtain twitching up there,
she'd
wouldn't
love
she?
it.
Like, whose funeral can I go to next?
Yeah.
Hopefully this will be the end of precincts deaths for a little while, because it's a little bit on the silly side, but never mind.
Well, if you're going to die somewhere, why not the precinct? It's that new happening place. So anyway, this memorial's been set up for Craig. Ash is laying flowers. Bertie's putting down a bear. Brody is looking on and from Scally's Alley, being a bit miserable, and he's listening to an answer phone message from his mum, Lou, telling him to go to the cafe. Meanwhile, Mick is in the cells in the police station and Kit goes to see him and he's still saying, I didn't do nothing, I didn't want me. Even though they've got DNA evidence. And Kit's like, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you rot in prison for this. And a bit later on, there's a bit where Lisa comes to see Kit in his home. And he says something like, oh, he killed Tinks. And it's so funny because that's kind of like our attitude to Craig now he's gone. A bit like when he was alive, we were all like kind of bullying him a bit, being mean about him. But now he's dead, we're like, no, he was the greatest police officer. We loved him. We did love him, but he was not very good at being a police officer.
No, it doesn't mean you can kill him off though.
No, you can't just beat people around the head for being bad at their jobs. Goodness sake, half the country would be dead.
Yeah. Do you think that there were I can't remember from watching the scene whether there was anyone else there that would have seen Mick doing this. I assume not, but
Well, no, nobody goes to the precinct, do they?
this is the thing. The probability that somebody not only was there, but somebody who knows either Craig or Mick, Craig or Mick or both of them is actually quite high. So he's playing a very dangerous game by saying that he didn't do it.
Now, I assume that somebody owns, like, there's some kind of company that owns the precinct, like a landlord or something that owns it. And when Mason was killed, I bet you they had a big meeting and they were like, oh, we need to put like security cameras in or something because the crime rate here is getting ridiculous. And they were like, well, someone's already died. What's the point of closing the door after the horse is bolted? There's no point putting it in. And I bet you they're having another meeting.
Twice, is it?
Another meeting now, and the guy's like, huh? Should we have put those CCTV cameras in, Bob? Should we have? Should we? And Bob's like, well, it's not going to happen the third time. Let's just leave it. Right, so Brody goes to see his family in the cafe, and the girls were still there again. I couldn't believe it. I thought they were just hired for the week.
One and done. No, they're in it for good now. What are they called? Shanice and Joni.
Yeah. What a beautiful name.
Yeah.
So he gets some milkshakes and Lou goes and joins him at the counter to see if he's all right. And she says, I haven't told the girls about anything that's happened with their dad. And she says, can you look after them later? And he's cagey because he says he's got something to do. Now, Kirk, Gary and Maria go to the cafe and the Winter Browns come in and Kirk is very rude to both of them because he accuses them of being friends with Mick and Mick's the one who killed Craig, so he doesn't want to associate with them anymore.
Kirk really has had a rough couple of weeks, hasn't he? Because he's been obviously very affected by Craig's death, being his kind of semi-dad mate for a long time, but then also with Julie's funeral going on this week, and when Julie came in, she was there as Kirk's girlfriend, wasn't she? I thought that the surprising lack of Kirk today in the funeral scenes. He got a few lines, but I'd have thought he'd have had a bit more to do. But yeah, he's going through the ringer at the moment, and it's really no surprise that he's kind of going off on one.
There's somebody. I found it really interesting how much of a big deal they made of Julie's funeral this week. I know this isn't the topic that we're talking about now, but and it makes me worry about Craig's wake because I don't really want to do 2 weeks or, a fortnightly wake for a big character who's died on Corrie. Do you?
Well, hopefully that we've put an end to the deaths on Coronation Street for the time being. But it would feel wrong if they weren't going to have something for Craig. I mean, they find... I think it was today's episode, wasn't it? That they say that they're going to have something here, like a memorial service here in Weatherfield, rather than... Because Beth wants to have the funeral up in Norfolk. And I thought that was quite a good way of still getting a proper goodbye for Craig on screen rather than having to explain yet again why Beth doesn't turn up. Now, I do think that there's a possibility that Beth may well have come to Weatherfield and probably should have at this point.
She would have done in real life.
Yeah.
And she's saying, I want a family funeral in Norfolk. Okay, love, who's going though? Because all the family's dead.
Well, she's. I think they said that one of the Tinkers was there with her, Arlene or what have you, was there with her.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. I don't know why she can't have it down here, but I thought it was fair enough
down from Manchester.
Oh yeah, sorry, you're right. Usually they'll just say, "Oh, the person didn't turn up, or they were too sad to come."
His mum was too sad to go to the funeral.
Well, this is what we had with Molly when Molly died during the tram crash. Diggory didn't turn up because he was too sad to come along to his own daughter's funeral. It just would have been utterly wrong, and for whatever reason, they can't get Lisa George to come back. Fair enough. So yeah, I think that this is quite good way of doing it at the end of the day. So we know the funeral's going to happen elsewhere, but we still get to say goodbye to Craigie ourselves.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking the emotional impact after another one, just like a week or two before.
Maybe this is what Coronation Street has been readying us for with this wall-to-wall misery these past few months. Like we're gonna have to make sure they're all ready and steeled up for double funeral action.
But if you think about it, I said before about when characters go, you can't make so much of a big deal about it necessarily because then it would just be a non-stop exit storyline show. And this is kind of proving my point a little bit, because Craig and Julie died quite close to each other, and it just, the whole show's been dominated by their leaving stories for like a month.
Yeah, you're right.
Not that I'm really complaining about it. I'm just saying it's not sustainable.
Well, it ties into what we were saying last week about having grief fatigue, and I'm sure that I won't feel as sad with Craig's funeral as I might have done if there hadn't been quite so many exits in recent months. But you never know.
I am sorry for derailing
pull
it.
it out of the bag. I would say as well, just to, we can talk bad about Beth as she's not here at the moment, but I would have thought that she might come back for Kirk as well, because when she left last autumn, they were still on good-ish terms, weren't they? They had a final goodbye scene together. It wasn't like her storming out saying, "I never want to see you again." They had a nice little cuddly peanut moment, and I would have thought that Beth might consider that Kirk's having a really rough time at the moment, because I know he's got Maria, but he's useless. Really just on his own, isn't he? Was Craig still living with Kirk? I can't remember. So is he just kind of rattling around in that flat above the kebab shop on his own? I don't know whether I want... Would you want to see a story that delved into Kirk's grief and depression and
No. I see a lot of comments, I'm going to say this. I see a lot of comments on Twitter about insert my favourite character here, right? And people say, I wish that my favourite character got more time for us to explore their feelings after so-and-so happened. And I'm guilty of this too. I've said this before myself. But I'm just going to say that most people don't want that. And it becomes quite miserable and tedious, because so many shocking and terrible things happen on Coronation Street. Everyone would have PTSD. Everyone would be in counselling and be depressed. That's not something that we need to see necessarily.
It would just be an interesting opportunity, I would think, to give Kirk a storyline. Kirk never has storylines, does he? I'm sure he's very much capable of holding one, but and this is a natural way to get your foot in the door.
Right, okay. Are you just saying it because you think it's a good idea, or are you saying it because you think you'd want to watch it?
It honestly depends what they did with it. Kirk is very much kind of isolated and on his own at the moment, so I don't know who would even be rallying round him particularly. Tyrone maybe, and he's had not so much time on screen recently, too busy tied up with Doran. I'm just looking for ways of getting long-term characters up in the forefront with stories, and I don't know what wages Andy Wyman is on at the moment, but he's not going to be pulling in the Jack P. Shepherd numbers, I imagine, is he?
No idea.
So it could work, but yeah, maybe a story about Kirk falling into the pits of depression and despair.
No thanks.
Might not be fun to watch.
Okay.
But let's have a story where he comes out of it, because he's going to be languishing on his own until he gets himself out of this funk, and I think he needs a new girlfriend to do it with. Let's give Kirk a positive story where he finds a girl. I'd love there to be just like, a female equivalent of Kirk, because I didn't mind him and Beth together, but they did feel like a bit of a mismatch. I'd like him to have a like a similarly dim kind of girlfriend. I'm kind of imagining a sort of Hugo and Alice Vicar of Dibley sort of thing going on between them. It can actually be quite sweet and funny, and otherwise he's just like, he's there for no particular reason.
Just to check, are you asking for another new character?
Well, I can't think of anybody quite at the moment who fits the mould. So
what about Toya?
No, Toya's not interested in Kirk. Oh my gosh.
Well, who else is...
Just imagine...
Leanne's single.
I don't know, she's still sniffing a bit around Ronnie, isn't she? Last time we saw her.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think Kirk deserves a bit of justice, having been on the show for 25 years and still not really made that big a name for himself Kirk, in terms of storylines.
I don't think they're good at writing for him.
No. At least he's getting more than Izzy, I suppose. She turned up at the wake today, didn't she? And I don't even think she got a line.
I hope she got a sandwich, though.
Right. They put on a good spread for her, I'm going to say that. If you like
lovely fruit
like a macaron.
Tarts.
Yeah.
I was looking at those fruit tarts going, I should make some fruit tarts. I like that.
Anyway, sorry, back to Corey after that.
Kit goes back to his flat, and he finds that the door is open and somebody is smashing up the place. Who could it be but Brody the kitten? Brody says, I'm doing it for revenge. And he tries to flounce out. He doesn't even know he's a kitten yet. And Kit says, no, stop. We need to talk. And Brody says, my dad's innocent. You set him up. So you can get him off now. And Kit says, no way. We've got evidence that Mick killed Craig.
It's interesting that Brody is so adamant that Mick is innocent. I mean, I suppose it's natural to not want to suspect your dad of murder.
Right, don't forget, he has been raised by Lou, who has been making excuses for this man the entire time that she's been with him. Any time that Mick gets accused of anything, Lou minimises it or says that they're lying or it's not true. And so he's picked up on this. And he's also, I think children are very, very defensive of their parents.
Yeah, I would have thought that he must have seen Mick's temper at some point.
Somewhere inside he knows that his dad's capable of doing this. And that kind of makes it worse.
Yeah.
So Brody says, no, we need our dad. Our family needs him. And Kit says, well, he's guilty, but why don't you can help him. Forget about smashing this flat up. I'll forget about it if you go now, okay? And Brody says, no, Brody says, no, I'm not doing it. And Kit says, Mick's violent. Why don't you talk to your mum about it? Has he hit you? And Brody goes, ah.
Yeah, I was looking forward to a bit more of a fight scene there because Brody kind of launches him. Brody just launches himself at Kit, doesn't he? But the scene cut out before that they can have a proper old fisticuffs there.
Scene Kit out.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah.
How do you feel that they're portraying Brody at the moment? Because
I really hate him.
I really don't like him, and
You're not supposed to.
He's a bit. So it was one of these characters that you're not supposed to like, but it feels like Corrie are trying to make us feel sorry for him somewhat.
Really?
Especially in the way that, he wants to get justice for his dad, so look how loyal he is. And, he's been raised by this monster. It's not his fault that he turned out this way. I've seen quite a few commenters online saying they just kind of Masonifying him, bringing him in as a nasty bully, but stick around in the show for a bit longer and he'll be redeemed in the same way
probably.
that I just don't really want him to be. I don't need Brody on the street. I'm not interested in the fact that he's Kit's son, but it really does feel like he could be here for the long term.
I
in
think
inverted
so as well.
commas.
I mean, at the moment, the trouble is, and you can disagree with this if you don't believe that there are too many new characters and there's too much of a focus on them. But we've gone through a cycle of tearaway kids for about 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
All the same age, all with the same kind of bad, troubled backgrounds, all of whom have been rehabilitated on screen. So we had even Kelly, Kelly Nealon. Now we've got
we
Mason.
We had Corey before them, didn't we?
And even, what's his face? Who was the drug dealer? He got in.
Yeah, Jacob.
Jacob, yeah. It's just been a steady stream of just misunderstood. I don't know, and even Max, he's not a new character, but he's in the same mould.
Yeah,
I just wonder how much real...
It was all STC fodder, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. How much really are we saying that's new and different about these people? Are we just replacing the same characters with new actors because we've got rid of one of them?
Yeah.
Because the story took it to that place. I don't know.
I really got no clue how long Brody's going to be in the show. It all depends, I suppose, on how much he and Kit click when it kind of all comes out about his paternity. But he's clearly going to be in the show for a good few months yet because he's got to be there when Dylan comes out. And I think Dylan's due to come out in July, August sort of time. And, he's going to come back to the street and there's clearly going to be fireworks there between them. Will Brody have rehabilitated by then? It's like, I just want to, put a line under it. Or will Brody be scared of Dylan after that beating that he delivered to him, or is he gonna treat him with some kind of respect because he's seen that he's got a bit of chutzpah? I don't know. But the prospect of more Brody scenes at the moment doesn't particularly fill me with joy and hope.
No, and it's difficult too because again, the actors are all great. I think that
yeah, he's doing it. I can't remember what the actor's called who plays Brody, but he's doing a good job of being obnoxious, exactly
the word I was thinking of. They're also cocky and unlikable, and when I've never met the guy in real life, but going off Mason,
Luca
was very different and very approachable.
He's lovely,
a lovely guy. I mean, he's dead now, so we don't have to worry about
Luca
it.
Toolan's not dead.
No, Mason. So Yeah, I just feel bad for the actors, because we can't be the only people thinking this is just a clone of this guy, who's a clone of that guy, who's a clone of that guy, like a bunch of Russian dolls. And just like Russian dolls, the further you get inside, the smaller they become, because they're just a shadow of their former selves. Because we've had the same story, and I don't feel like it's given these actors really. The people aren't going to give them their due, because we've seen it before. It's just how differently can you play a ne'er-do-well who's going to end up having a heart of gold? I don't know.
Yeah.
How much can we be interested in another redeemable scallywag? But on the other hand, I think to myself, is this just a realistic kind of portrayal of what it's like to be in a working class kind of situation where a lot of kids end up from troubled backgrounds and having to go into... how many people know loads of kids that have gone through the system like that? Probably loads of people. Is it more realistic, actually, to do it like that than to have everybody living in a working class area, all going to university?
Yeah, maybe.
To study big question marks.
I don't know. I just would keep on saying that I want to see more of the people our age and older on the street, and to stop having quite so much of a focus on the young uns.
I certainly do not mind having a focus on the young people, but I just think the stories are all the same. That's my problem. I'd rather see a bit more work drama with Asha. Like, how is Amy getting on with her studies? Does Ardy feel left behind by his peers?
We've hardly seen him recently, have we?
But you know what I mean? These are all characters we actually know.
I'd really wish that they would lean more into what Asha's doing at the moment.
What's going on with Nina?
Well, Nina, who bloody knows
they
about her?
They were going out with each other.
I think in some of her gothic rituals, she's summoned a portal to the nether realm when she slipped into it and nobody's noticed yet.
She just commutes in.
There was a nice video that Coronation Street's social media put on this week, which was Tanisha Gorey spending a day following a paramedic, and that was really fun. Cool. So clearly they've got stuff that they want to do with her, but I just they've really missed a trick with Asha, with Tanisha, because when they did that skin lightening story, when was that, 5 years ago now maybe, it was like, oh my gosh, what a talent we have here. She's been on the show for 10 years, seriously underused, and they're showing that she's absolutely superb. I feel really positive for the future of Asha on the show, and they've just flubbed it, haven't they?
Well, look.
And they said, well, she's had one storyline, let's put her in a box for 5 years, let's get some other new fresh blood in. We don't need it. We just, I feel, sorry Brody, but that's just how I'm feeling at the moment. I do not have a bromance with you at the moment.
Well, like I'm saying, I think that these are all interesting stories. I just find that they're back to back.
But I don't want to judge too soon, because honestly, when the bullying storyline started a year and a half ago, or whenever it was, I was feeling the same about Mason. I was like, I don't need another bullying storyline. We've seen it all before. But actually, I grew to really find Mason very interesting and complex a character. Complex to, he's no Roy Cropper or anything, but and then obviously his ending story, the final episode, everybody was very rightly lauded it, so there could be something absolutely spectacularly amazing and brilliantly entertaining in the works for Brody at some point.
Ryan Mulvey plays,
go.
And he was also in Hollyoaks as J.J. Osborne.
There we go. I never knew that.
Well, he's definitely got a lot of confidence, that kid, and he plays Brody very, very well. He is completely convincing as an arrogant, annoying teenage boy who's got a bit of a dangerous streak to him.
Yeah, so it really is down to the storyliners and whoever to show us why we should care about him and not just dismiss him as yet another clone. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
So Sarah and Bernie turn up to Kit's flat and find him sweeping it up, because he says, "Oh, I've been burgled," and they're like, "Yeah, when we came in, a kid ran past us. It must have been him." And so they he's kind of dismissive of it, because he's obviously decided not to worry about it.
Gary, he doesn't want to see his own son be sent down.
Yeah, Sarah's still trying to get him to report the break-in. Gary comes in and blames Kit for everything, because if Kit had taken Mick in after he and Gary had that fight, then Craig would still be alive. And all the way through this week, Gary's Gary at any point he will get in a dig at Kit or say something, won't he, about like, oh, if only anyone will listen to me.
We had a couple of characters blaming themselves for Craig's death this
that
week.
always
I think
happens.
Lisa
on
did
a
it
soap.
at one point, didn't they? Yeah.
Always, except the person who actually did it.
Yeah, it's complete denial at this point.
So Bernie goes and speaks to Brody, and she knows that she might be his grandma, right? And he obviously has no idea. So she's being very nice to him. And she says, look, I think it was you who trashed Kit's flat. And she says, look, you know, your dad, Mick, he is a wrong. And whether he killed Craig or not, he kidnapped me. I know that for sure. And Brody's not interested. And so she's like, look, you know, you remind me of our Paul. He used to get himself in trouble, but he turned his life around. You could do it too. And just as it looks like she might be getting somewhere, Kit comes along and arrests him. And then Bernie's there going, no, oh. Because just before this happens, she's saying, oh no, Kit's a good guy. He would never do anything bad to you.
Do you see the resemblance in any way, shape or form between Brody and Paul at the moment?
I thought this was kind of funny because I got the impression that Bernie really didn't know that much about her kids for a certain period of their lives.
You're right, actually.
How would she know?
Yeah, she was very much an absent mother, wasn't she?
Because she didn't she raise Gemma and Paul was raised by his dad? Or was it the other way around?
No, I think that's... Oh, God, I've lost track of it now. I mean,
there was
obviously when Paul was Brody's age, he must have been with Bernie then, because this is when he was being abused by Kel. So she did see Paul when he was, you know, in his mid-teens.
Do you know what, though? That's actually a really troubling thing, then, to say to a lad. Oh, you remind me of Paul. He used to get in trouble. Are you being abused by somebody?
Oh, gosh.
Well, I mean, you think about it. That's why Paul was acting out, because he was being abused. And I guess, in a certain way, Brody and all the rest of the family are kind of being abused.
Well, yeah,
they
are a victim of a type of
verbally.
abuse, aren't they? That's true. He's very much a controlling father, even if Brody doesn't realise it yet. So maybe that's why, Bernie is trying to see the good in him, because she realises that often this kind of behaviour is a response to something deeper going on beneath the surface. Very perceptive is our Bernie.
Oh, she's so wise. You know, she consulted her crystals.
That's what I was just going to say, yeah. She dangled crystals over a picture of him and they showed her the way.
I imagine Bernie in her spare time a bit like, is it Jared from the Goblin King from Labyrinth with her crystal balls, like... What would you call this movement I'm doing? Wiggling around and around.
It looks like you're giving somebody a testicle exam.
Well, I don't know what I'd learned from this. You know when you get the 3 balls and you twist them around in your hands?
Yeah, like you got your Chinese worry balls in your hands. Yeah.
But with crystals.
I don't know. I think it's quite sweet that she's softening to him and warming to him, because she is, despite on the one hand having been a very absent mother for the rest of her life, she's definitely trying to make up for it now, and she is definitely the Mama Bear type character. Yeah,
I know, but I'm a contrary person, so I just see Bernie again going headfirst into a situation, thinking that she knows what's going on and not really having a clue.
Yeah, I think that towards the end of the episode, when she went to the police station and gave him an alibi, that
like,
maybe
you're
was
getting
getting
yourself
a bit far.
into stupid situations now.
Yeah.
And you're meddling in things you don't understand, and you're also picking one, like she's kind of like, I tell you what, if Brody ends up getting a girl pregnant, he better watch out, because she's going to dump him. She just goes to the youngest member of the family, doesn't she, from one to another.
She's still grieving Paul, and she's had part of her family torn away, and I think she's just wants to make sure that she doesn't lose her other son in
she's
Kit,
lose
and one way that
Kit
she
by going against him and she's literally
she foresees a future in her crystal ball, clearly, where everyone's happy families. Kit's forgiven her, Brody's somewhat been incorporated into the family unit.
She's definitely a bit more of a believer in the good natures of humankind than I am.
Yes, I will definitely. Maybe you need to get on the crystals.
Maybe I should. Does anyone have any suggestions? I actually do have a ring that has a crystal in it that's supposed to help you not worry. But I'm worried. I'm scared I've lost it. Right, so Kit's arrested Brody. Meanwhile, Everyone's talking about Craig's funeral and saying that in the pub.
This is just when it was agreed that it would be
they're going to get a bus
here.
down there. We're not going to see that. We're going to see them instead have something up here. And in Chesney, and it's still provoking Kirk by his mere presence.
Yeah, he's not purposefully doing it because he's grieving and all.
Kirk's like, you should have said something if he was as dangerous as you said he was. Because basically Ches and Gemma dropped themselves in it by going, oh God, knew it was just a matter of time.
Well, it's the same with Sean, and I don't think we've seen a whole lot of guilt from Sean this week, have we? He last week said, if only I'd reported him when he beat me up in the alley before, maybe none of this would have happened. There's so many ifs and buts. And I think that if Mick had been arrested then, I don't think he'd have been in prison for it, so he would have still very much been out and about. And
oh no, yeah. And it's
with
really
the possibility of beating up.
It's really interesting
Craig.
How pro-police this show has become since Kit and Lisa have become, and Craig have become full-time characters, because almost always in the past, when a police officer was in the show, it was as a brief appearance or maybe like an ongoing guest starring.
Yeah.
As part of a case where they were usually investigating somebody who hadn't done anything wrong and kind of being the enemy. But now, you know, if you watch the show, what message are you getting? It's like, you should tell the police every time anything happens, you should always report it, blah, blah, blah. And Bernie going around and saying all this stuff is obviously the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
But I just find it's a really interesting kind of flip on what Coronation Street used to be about the police. Like, you know, they're out to get you.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, I mean, there are still characters in it who clearly are on the wrong side of the law, but they're all the bad guys.
Yeah.
But in the past, there have been characters who've done, you know, illegal things, but we've been always on their side. You know, like even Mike with his counterfeit T-shirts.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway,
I
just thought that was interesting.
No, very perceptive of you.
Everyone's like, Kirk's, you know, stop blaming Chesney, and Kirk won't listen.
Every time anybody just falls out with somebody or blames them for something, it's just a matter of time before either we get a reconciliation scene or months pass and they just happen to have made up. I don't think there's anybody here that's worried about the long-term friendship between Chesney and Kirk being irreparably damaged, are we? But
Bet and Rita still not talking.
That's true.
So Bernie goes back to Kit and she's mad. Like, what on earth are you doing? And Kit says, look, I turned a blind eye again about Mick attacking Gary and now Craig is dead. I'm not happy letting this happen again. I've got to do my job. You know, this might be surprising to you, Bernie, but I am a police officer and you're not supposed to know that I'm bent.
I just was looking down at the notes and I forgot that we did actually have a make-up scene between Kirk and Chesney, didn't we? When they go and find him on the bench later and share some crisps. So
and say sorry.
That was a little bit of nothing.
Kirk was the bigger man and says sorry. Well, he wasn't been a bigger man, really, because he was blaming Chesney for nothing. So Bernie's like, please show Brody pity, but he won't. And this is when we also learn that they're going to make Craig's memorial at some point. Lou finds Kit and Sarah in the street and she calls him a scumbag for having Brody arrested and tells Sarah that she should steer clear of the whole situation. Then we get at the end of the episode Bernie coming into the station looking shifty saying it wasn't Brody what done the flat, I saw him at the park.
I feel really...
What a stupid move.
I know, a totally stupid move.
Because all it would take is for the police officers to go, why wasn't it you, Brody? And he say, oh, well, I was at the shop. Or he's not going to know that Bernie said that he was at the park.
No, exactly. Oh, well. Going back to Lou, I feel like really, really bad for her at the moment because she's just got nobody, has she, apart from her girls and Brody on her side. Like, it's not her fault. And this is what Wednesday's episode is a little bit about. The theme of it is, should you blame the spouse of the abuser or the criminal and tar them with the same brush? How much can you
give her a break when she's obviously still not clocked that Mick is the problem?
I think that she has, but she just doesn't want to admit it to herself. She's still showing that loyalty that she had from the moment that the characters came into the show back at the beginning of the year. But I'd really like Lou to have a proper friend and somebody just to have a nice sit and a chat with.
But she's so prickly that she kind of puts everybody off. Like, Maria could have been her friend.
I could see that Abby maybe cozying up to her. Or even Bernie. And I know that she's... Yeah, as as part of is already in the mix a little bit. But I'd really think that a scene where Lou opens up and shows her more human side to somebody would do wonders for the character, because she's still very much a victim, isn't she, in this? But she's coming across as being an antagonist.
Yeah, I mean, Farrell Haggerty plays her, and she's a very well-liked actress. She's got her, her TikToks and stuff. She's very, very funny, and I think a lot of her natural charisma makes you sympathise with Lou.
Yeah. So that's just. The
thing is about Lou is that she's hot and cold, isn't she? She's very mercurial, and she'll be getting on with you, and if you say something wrong, she turns instantly. So she must be very difficult to get on with.
Yeah, I'd really actually quite like to see any scenes of Shona and Lou together, considering how much Julia Goulding and Farrell get on in real life. I think that those two, I could see them having quite a good fun time.
But also,
together.
I can see Shona putting her foot in it continuously, because she would just be blunt about things.
Yeah.
And Lou would react like an atomic bomb.
She would, but I think that they could be really, really good
But
friends.
I also think that Shona can brush it off. Like, she wouldn't really be phased.
And I can't remember, what's the status? So Shona slept with Kit.
Yeah.
Now Kit's going out with Sarah. Mm-hmm. Shona thinks that's quite funny. Kit and Lou are kind of enemies at the moment, so they would have something to talk about there, wouldn't they?
Yes.
They've both been to bed with Kit. There's your first talking
I don't think there's going to be many women left at the end of the year who have it, to be honest with you.
Right, Wednesday's episode, go for it.
Lisa Swain is sneezing.
Right, okay, what was that? That was some Oscar-worthy sneezing there.
It was.
I'm gonna say. I have never seen somebody sneeze with quite such realism.
Convincing.
It was
you know
very
what?
convincing
I
sneezing.
look back and I think to myself, how often have I ever seen anyone sneeze ever on TV? I don't think they do it. I think they're all too scared.
Sometimes it's just a token kind of, but this, she sneezed with gusto.
When in the script, right, it says, "Oh, your character's sick." Most people will be like, no one goes for the sneeze apart from Vicky Myers. She's just like, "Yeah, if you saying I'm sick, I'm gonna have a sneezing fit." And you've never seen the likes of my sneezing fit, because this is what I got through acting college doing.
Maybe this is her thing. Maybe this is on her resume.
Yeah, probably CV. It's got like can drive, beautiful
accents.
Accent, can do any accent, and I can sneeze on demand.
Let's try that out. Because at the moment, we'll come back to the Swain and Carla story towards the end. There doesn't seem to be a huge reason why she had to have a cold in this week's episodes.
Well, some people were so convinced that they said that Vicky Myers was probably actually sick.
No, it was definitely fake. But I have seen some people theorising this could be the start of yet another medical storyline, and what's going on with Swain on the wane. I don't know, but I don't think anybody needs a story where Lisa is going to go down with something. But she is working herself very hard, isn't she? She's doing lots of policing recently.
She's so much,
and that's enough
work
to take it out of anybody. So maybe it's just that a bit run down and needs a bit of loving from her Carla. I don't know. Well,
she's having a sneezing fit, and she sees Kit and tells him that Brody is on bail, and does he definitely still think that he did it? And he's like, yeah. And she says, well, there's an alibi and you're not going to believe who it's from. And then so Kit goes and confronts Bernie about this and says, you better withdraw this, I'm going to have you for perverting the course of justice. And Bernie says, look, he's my family, I can't abandon him, we've got to look after him. And then Sarah walks in and hears this bit about what's going on. So she has to get filled in by Kit about Lou and Brody and why he's his son and how much of a mess everything is. And he asks Sarah for advice, not knowing that she is an absolute nightmare in her personal life and would have no good solution to anything. Mm-hmm. Sarah reckons that he needs to have a long think. I think most of the time she has to think about anything, it takes a long time. So what do you want for the future? And if Brody is really your son, you need to think about where does he fit into it. And I think over the past couple of years, Sarah has really turned into a character who likes to dispense wisdom and will sit and listen, and she's always she's been like the friend and sounding board for quite a few characters.
Yeah, she was for Dee Dee, wasn't she?
But I just think she needs to like do the same for her own life, because she gives off this air of wisdom, but she makes such stupid decisions.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So Kit finds Brody on the bench outside the chip shop, because we're finally using that.
Yeah, not inside, of course, but
No.
Nice
People
that
will
Joe
often-
Parkinson remembered that the chip shop exists. He wrote Wednesday's episode. Didn't
Quite often, characters will get chips from that shop, but I don't think for a long time we've seen anybody sitting outside eating chips there. So well done. And Kit says, "I got something to tell you." And he says, "Come back to my flat." So he says, "I'm going to withdraw my statement on one condition. You need to give your head a wobble. Don't end up behind bars like your dad." And Brody's like, "Oh, I'm not scared. I don't care. I'll go back to STC. I'm not even bothered." So it didn't work out very well, did it? Sarah gets chatting with Bernie in the street and admits that she's finding it hard to know Kit. And Bernie says he's had a rough upbringing. I don't know why she thinks that, because didn't he say he had a great childhood with his mum?
With the Greens?
Is it just because he set fire to somebody?
He had a better childhood than Mick. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah. So what?
No. I forgot. So, yeah,
it was a rough time. He's not quick to trust people, but you got to give him some time, Sarah.
Yeah. Do you think that should this be enough warning flags for Sarah to say, I don't need the drama here?
She loves it.
She's her own worst enemy, it's true, isn't it? But maybe it's just because I don't really like Kit. But I'm saying to Sarah, dump this guy. He's only going to cause you grief. And you don't want to be a mum to Brody, do you? Stepmum to Brody? No, it's not worth the drama. I say, get out now.
No, you've got your own horrible children.
Harry's not horrible. He's just invisible.
I like the way you don't defend Bethany.
She's sorting herself out. She's all right. She's in London. Harry did at least get a Danish today when Sarah brought back coffees and pastries. There were 3 in there, and for a moment I was like, "Why have you got 3? Who's that?" Oh yes, that is an actual other character in this house. Apparently, we just never see him. I really thought that when they recasted Harry at Christmas time, it'd be because we're going to be seeing a whole lot more of him in 2025. But he's appeared in like 2 episodes or something this year.
Maybe they've got something, in their mind, and they're letting him
waiting in the wings. Is Brody going to come and menace Harry or something?
Is Harry going to be the new Brody, who is the new Mason, who is the new Kelly?
He could well be. I'll tell you one thing. I don't think that Liam's going down that route, because we were talking about how he's grown up all of a sudden. He's suddenly shot up.
He suddenly
now that Charlie Renshaw's turned 60.
Become a bit. He's got slightly different. He looks a bit more older in his face.
Yeah, he does. It's bizarre. So it's not like he's been off our screens particularly too long.
No,
but both of us remarked separately today, Liam looks a bit older, but he doesn't look the sort that's going to go down the route of being a big tough guy villain, does he? No. He seems a more sensitive type.
I know we don't normally talk about the way people look on the show, and I hope that it's not wrong to comment, but the thing is that you literally see these children grow up, and then when when they go through a growth spell or something, you notice, and it is cute. And it is, it's a positive thing to enjoy seeing somebody flourish. So I hope that it's okay to comment on, because I did find it quite endearing to go, "Oh look, oh little Liam's got a bit taller. He's as tall as Gary now.
He's becoming massive now, isn't he?"
Well, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't lock him in a cupboard anymore, would you? There must have been some fertiliser in there.
Maybe that's what it was.
Right, so Sarah gets chatting with Bernie in the street. Oh no, I said this, haven't I?
We've done this.
Lou goes to the pub, and Gary's in there having
Lou's
a quiet
been kicked out of work, hasn't she? She tried to turn up earlier in the day, and
Maria kicks her out. No? I think she fires her.
Yeah. Audrey wasn't in it at all this week, was she?
Audrey's been...
Maria was her proxy.
I got to get this off my chest, because I might forget to say this later, but Gary, decides to kind of like befriend Lou a little bit. First of all, he's rude to her, isn't he? And she stands up for herself. Like, "I didn't do anything. Leave me alone." She tries to pay for a drink. Her card gets declined. And so Gary buys her a drink, I think, and he lets her sit with him and stuff, and saying, "I was a bad lad myself. I'm going to make sure Mick pays for what he's done to Craig."
It was an interesting comparison to make, because at Gary's worst, was he as bad as Mick is now? Because he was, I can't remember how old he was when he came into the show, whether he was late teen or early 20s, but he was definitely rough as then, wasn't he? And
well, they stole kitchens. And...
David convinced him to burgle Lovely Gay Ted's house, and he was definitely a very dodgy character. And then he kind of came out of it a bit. Then, obviously, under Ian McLeod, he went right back down the route of villainy. He, like Mick, is also responsible for the death of another character. Nay, two characters on the street are now dead thanks to Gary, Rana and Rick Neelan. But I don't think there was any point where Gary was supposed to have been quite as despicable as Mick.
Well, Gary killed Rick Git
in self-defense.
Yeah.
And it was just an accident that Rana's dead.
But I will say, in Mick's defence, I don't think he went to kill Craig.
No.
He just hit him, unfortunately, his weakest point,
but, I mean,
which is his brain.
If you're gonna go around beating people up as much as Mick had been in the weeks running up to that confrontation with PC Tinker, you're gonna risk killing somebody or going a bit too far at one point.
If Corey wants to lecture us about something, which I know they really love to do, and I do too, so I'm not knocking them for it. Maybe more should be made of the fact that, because this won't happen though, because nobody saw it happen. Nobody, and Mick's not going to admit. But he only hit him once, and I think the moral of the story is there's no safe way to fight somebody that has
with a baseball bat
that has zero risk of killing them. Like, even if you punch somebody, if they fall down and hit their head, there's loads of stories of that happening. You think you're just having a scrap with somebody, but you kill them. If you
hit someone round the head with a baseball bat, then don't be surprised if they don't get back up.
Look,
again.
I'm sorry to say this, but do you not think that fiction and TV has taught us a little bit that you can kind of hit people with a bat and they'll be fine? How many fights have you seen on TV where people have whacked somebody and it's like they go ow,
yeah,
and then punch them?
I don't know, but equally I have seen that episode of The Walking Dead. And
yeah, but that had barbed wire on it.
I all I'm saying is that it was an interesting comparison to make between Gary and Mick, and actually Gary was a bit of a scrapper himself. And yes, he has been. What do you mean
was? He was doing it the other week.
Yeah, but
with Mick.
But I still would say that he was never as much of a villain as Mick.
Well, he's never
has clearly
been
made up to be. No, that's very, very true, actually.
Mick has been painted and sexually harassed people.
Yeah,
he got very scary with Daisy, didn't he?
Yeah, for sure.
Mick's like a multi-layered villain.
Yeah. But it did bring up the point that comes up later in the episode that just because Gary's a wrong un or has been a wrong un, that doesn't mean that Maria should be tarred with the same brush, and the same should be said with Lou, which is basically where Wednesday's narrative was going, wasn't it?
Anyway, what I was saying earlier about getting something off my chest.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, I kind of diverged a little bit, but because Gary kind of softens to Lou a little bit, and then he has a go at Maria for firing her. And I don't know why Maria has to hire Lou back when Gary could hire Lou if he's so bothered, hire her at the builder's yard.
To do what?
Answer the phones, do the invoicing, do the bookkeeping, phone up for new leads, organise the calendar, do the schedule. There's so much admin work for a building company that she could do. I
don't think if Maria's not going to hire Lou, Gary would be on very dodgy ground in the whole marital stakes if he hired Lou himself.
No, because he should put his money where his mouth is. Lecturing Maria about not hiring Lou and firing her when she needs... He was going, she's got kids to support. All right then, give her a job yourself. Are you telling me that a woman couldn't do some of the jobs? I know that there's a lot of really heavy lifting and lots of physical labour that would be required, but there's no way a woman couldn't do some of it. Put your money where your mouth is, Gary.
Well, Gary clearly does have a lot of money as well, because not only has he just bought the builder's yard, he's also hired 2 random background goons. And
they can't even speak.
This week he's given Ed his job back as well.
Yeah.
I do feel a bit bad for Ed this week. That must be a bit demeaning for him, because he used to own this yard
a
year and a half ago. He doesn't seem to mind because he's just a lovely, gentle type. But
Yeah, it would
have
sting
to
a
work,
bit, wouldn't it?
It would really sting coming back to work under somebody
And then having to
younger than you.
be a sycophant to your boss's son because he's a bit sad
Yeah.
and he can't take banter.
But maybe, you know, Gary now out of nowhere has got 3 new workers and a work experience kid on the books. Not that he has to pay him anything. So maybe he just hasn't got the cash for Lou.
Well, mind your own business, Gary. I just thought it was really annoying to have him lecture. Like, he was rude to Lou, and the only reason he seemed to feel bad for her and suddenly flip the entire script on whether she's his enemy or not is because she couldn't pay for a pint. If only it was that easy to make friends. So anyway, so they're having this drink, and Maria comes in. It's like, get out, don't talk to him. And Kit comes in and sits with Lou, who's now alone, and tells her, I'm going to withdraw my statement against Brody. Now you need to step up and be a proper mum to him. Make sure he doesn't get up to mischief and doesn't grow up idolising scumbags like Mick. I don't see how it's going to happen when Lou still hasn't seemed to let his grip on her go.
It's almost... I wouldn't want to kind of turn my back on somebody already, but I wonder how easy it would be to turn Brody's life around, because he seems to have reached the age where he's already, you know, formed his character, he's made his opinion, he's planted his flag. It wouldn't surprise me if he's a bit of an Andrew Tate watcher.
I was literally thinking that.
I wonder if they could go down an incel sort of storyline with Brody. That would be new for Coronation Street, and Brody could be the sort of character that I could see carrying that, maybe. I think other soaps have done it.
I definitely think... I think with the success of Adolescence, I can't imagine the soap bosses, all of them, not salivating over the prospect of doing the same thing with a character that they already have.
Yeah. As if we were saying today, it was today's episode, wasn't it, when Lou was talking to Brody about revising for his GCSEs, and
like,
all of a sudden we were like, GCSEs? This guy looks like he's about 25.
I know, what do you mean? Do you mean invigilating for the GCSEs? What do you mean?
He does not strike me as a 16-year-old boy.
Well, he's 19 in real life, the actor.
Yeah, they always do that, don't they?
But he's a very confident and mature 19-year-old.
I would not have put him at 16.
Like that at 19. I think I still look like I should have been in middle school.
No, you didn't.
All right, so...
I knew you when you were 19.
Oh, did you? Right, so back in the flat, you have written... Oh, yeah, so...
I like how you say this. You have written.
No, you have written about Carla and Lisa, but it's because...
Oh, this is... Yeah, stick that in the other.
It's because Mick's been attacked in prison.
Yes, that was quite a nice twist. I didn't know that was coming. I didn't see it coming.
Oh, has he died?
Yeah, I wondered as well, because they had that and then they cut to in the prison and he's looking very much worse for wear on the prison floor.
Well, yeah,
and I've got no idea what the future has in store for Mick, but there was definitely a moment there where I thought,
interesting.
Is this the end for... You know, has Brody literally lost his dad and then... give a chance for Kit to sneak on in there and sweep him off onto his own family tree. I thought this was quite an interesting development, although it also does tie in with what you were saying on the podcast last week about... I think you were saying it on the podcast, like, you're surprised that Mick is still in the show.
Yeah.
You know, normally in this circumstance, you'd have a character be arrested and that's the last we'd see of him, but it seems like they're determined to keep him going for a bit.
Yeah. So Sarah goes back to see Kit and she's like, oh, I can't keep falling for all these bad boys. Get my heart broken by these sexy bad boys. Not fair, it's not fair. You're going to break my heart. And then I find this really hard to swallow, that Kit actually cares about any human being but himself. He seems to really genuinely like Sarah. And honestly, if I was a bloke like Kit, right? Very handsome, very tall, got a great job, got a great flat. I wouldn't bother with Sarah, would you? She's a bit too high maintenance for me.
She's got a bit too much baggage. She's got a nice flat, but she's got a kid, and he's shown over the past 6 months that he pretty much can have any woman he wants.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't, yeah.
I'm surprised he wants
What is
a
it
relationship
about Sarah that it's not the high level of intellectual conversation and stimulation that she provides, is it? Come on now.
I just think he does not strike me as a relationship kind of guy. He's a bit of he's the Weatherfield's answer to George Clooney. I do not think that Sarah is the Amal Clooney that he's looking for somehow.
He is 100% going to break her heart at some point.
Of course he is.
No way is this a long-term relationship.
Well,
Sarah should see it coming, but maybe she just doesn't mind. She just wants someone to keep the bed warm for a bit.
He seems to really like her and want to be in a relationship with her. I just think it's very it just seems against his personality in general to like care about anything.
I'm not feeling any chemistry between them, and I'm not seeing any kind of Kit's not feeling soppy towards Sarah. He's just happens to be there. They're having a bit of a kiss sometimes.
But he does. He seemed happy to see it. Like, honestly, I really love Kit, but I'm not like...
Don't trust him.
I'm not a Kit apologist. When he smiles when she comes into a room, I'm like, why are you pretending to like this woman?
Yeah.
I do think he likes her. I just don't think it's his personality to... Anyway. So
I think he just likes the fact that she's a bit of a minx in the bedroom,
well,
to be
she's very
honest.
attractive. So he says, look, I don't want to break your heart, but... And she's like, well, it's not impressed with that answer. And he says, look, I do like you. I'll never lie to you again. And she gives him one more chance. Okay, Sarah. Maria gets Gary home and they have an argument. She has to go at him for talking to Lou. And he's defending himself, going, no, it's Mick that's the wrong end, not Lou. You give her some more shifts at the salon. And she's like, no. Why should she? I agree with Maria here. Why should she give her another chance? She gave her loads of chances. She stole Prosecco. She turned up late to something.
She wasn't the world's best worker.
She's a terrible person at work.
But I would hope that Maria might have an ounce of sympathy for this woman who's clearly the victim of emotional and physical abuse from her husband, and that's gonna cause her to act in some way. But don't do a public-facing job. Like, don't do a job where you have to be nice to people if you literally cannot do it for even 5 minutes straight. To be honest, I don't think that they need another person working at the salon anyway, do they, at the moment? It's not like they're overwhelmed with customers at the moment.
I've known people like Lou in real life, and you do feel sorry for them, but they're their own worst enemy. Like, she opens her mouth and she just, like... ruins any chance she gets. She ruins it, and she must know too that she does it to herself. She self-sabotages all the time.
Yeah.
So Brody turns up at the cafe to see Bernie. Says, "Thank you for getting me out. I don't know why you keep sticking your neck out on the line for me though." And she says, "Oh, you just remind me of Paul," which is a big hint, really, that you know related to me. He gets a call from Lou about what's happened to Mick. And Bernie offers him some reassurance after he's got over heard this bad news about his dad being beaten up, gives him a cup of tea, and Kit comes in, and because Bernie's texted him, and says, it's probably just a warning or a grudge. I'll make sure it won't happen again.
I didn't suspect at all that Kit had this attack put out on Mick, did you?
No, I
don't know, I didn't even think when Mick was beaten up. I didn't think, I wonder who's done that or why. He's a mouthy git, I'm sure. Yeah, he's probably rolled.
Get himself in trouble all by himself.
Yeah, exactly. But so
the next scene,
Kit is being so risky.
Yeah, he is.
He's a bad boy. He's gone through his whole life. From the moment he put those firecrackers in the letterbox. He's got away with things, and he's just getting so confident and cocky. He feels like he must think he's invincible, untouchable at the moment.
Look, I don't want to disparage the police, but I am almost certain that he will have seen people do the same thing. There must be a group of them who work there, who all know the score, like what you can get away with. And we've had high profile cases of police officers being quite corrupt in this country that's kind of come out recently.
Tell you what, maybe Bostello has done something and Kit's got evidence against
dirt on him.
Been Bostello, and so he lets him get away with all his all his bent shenanigans. And I don't know, but it's gonna spectacularly backfire on Kit of these days. I remember when he planted the evidence in the back of Nathan's van last year. I was like, oh, what's he doing? He's a police officer. And the more and more he's bending the law, breaking the law for his own ends, the more I'm thinking it's a bit silly. And it can't go on forever. There is no way that this is not going to catch up with him. So I complain about it's the Kit show at the moment, wall to wall Kit. this character has got to have a shelf life because...
Really?
So, yeah, I think
he'd
so.
just get fired.
Do you think... But is that all...
Just because
is
he's
that all
fired...
that would happen to
Look, I
him
know we think it's
for
the
what
bill,
he's done?
but just because he gets fired as a police officer doesn't mean he leaves the show.
No, but I think that he could, they're not just going to say, well, you're fired, don't do it again. He's literally perverted the course of justice on multiple occasions.
It depends on if they find everything out or just his latest misstep.
I think that they need to. I say justice for Nathan Curtis here.
Oh, dear.
He has got to have justice catch up with them. He's got to end up behind bars himself.
Can I just point out that it's not like he's corrupt and going around getting bribes off people or getting criminals off of charges, or all the things he's doing because he thinks it's the right thing to do to get justice for somebody who might not get justice.
Wash with me.
No, I know. I don't agree. But there are loads of cases where this has come out, in Making a Murderer, that Netflix documentary. I've forgotten the name of the guy who clearly actually did do it, but the police set him up and put evidence in there because they knew he did it, but they fitted him up and then it got found out and then he got away with it.
I don't know.
I'm kind of probably remembering that all wrong. But you see what I mean? He's bent, like I keep calling him bent for justice. That's what he is. He's doing it because he thinks Mick's not going to get enough punishment as it is. So he gets him beaten up. And he says, in the next scene, Sven comes in to see him. And I think, does he make a snidey remark about, you could have texted me this? Somebody did this week, which I thought was quite funny.
Don't ever text Kit anything. He doesn't ever look at his phone,
don't text anybody anything on Coronation Street when you can go and talk to them in person. So
they're probably just going to be round the corner if you're talking about them or thinking about them.
So they have a conversation about Mick, and she realises that it was Kit that ordered this to happen. And Kit's like, yeah, I did. He had it coming.
So at this point on... From this point onwards, Swain is now in up to her eyeballs with it as well, because rather than going to dob Kit in, she decides to stay quiet about it. She has the conversation with Carla later, doesn't she, saying, well, I'm gonna sit on this for a while. But how much trouble can Lisa get into now for withholding this evidence from Boss Stella?
This isn't the first time that Kit's got her in an awkward situation.
No, she's not as bent as him, but it's not a good look.
I thought she was much more of a goody two-shoes than this, but she...
Yeah. But she's saying, well, Mick did kill Tinks and you don't mess with one of my officers, but you can't work like that.
I know.
I'm sure there's a whistleblowing policy at Weatherfield Police Station that says you should probably report him at this point. And you say Kit is bent for justice. I think that's just going to be his defence when it all eventually comes out. But Swain has always pretty much shown that she's a stickler for the rules.
Well, she's made her own life very difficult at times because she has to play by the rules. But when it comes to Kit, she sometimes will bend the rules or ignore what he's doing that's wrong, which I think is really interesting.
She doesn't... it doesn't feel at the moment like she's kind of morally conflicted about what to do either. She's just kind of saying,
oh, why'd you tell me that?
Yeah, she's just like, no, I'm not going to report him.
No. So Lou phones Mick, who's in the hospital bed. We go, oh yeah, but this is what you were talking about, the hospital scene.
What?
He's in bed in hospital, covered in bruises. She calls him, and he's like, please come and visit me. And she doesn't want to, but he says, I love you. And so she relents and agrees to go in. And he's what's the word? Insecure about her and Kit, and says, you don't promise me you don't have feelings for him. And she says, no, I promise I don't.
Do you see anything happening in the imminent future between Kit and Lou?
I hope
not. A rekindling of passions there? I'm going to say I hope not as well.
I don't think it would be good for either of their character development.
No. Right,
so Maria and David are talking about the Michaelis later, and she's convinced that Lou... Sorry, every time I say Michaelis, it just sounds like a Japanese RPG name where they wanted to call somebody Michael, but they didn't think it sounded cool enough. It just really sticks out. So she's convinced that Lou's a bad un and David can't see it. And then...
Yeah, he basically just says, he says what we said earlier about Gary was a bit of a bad lad back in the day.
Does that make you bad as well? And
yes.
she's like, oh,
so
okay.
Maria goes home
Stunning
and they
logic.
just have a bit of a make-up cuddle with
they
Gary.
Both, she's made his dinner to make up.
I wanted to see what his favourite tea was, because it didn't look particularly
appetizing. It looked like a pile of tomatoes and olives, didn't it? You look like
Yeah, that's
bruschetta
not
or
what
something.
I would immediately go to if somebody was to ask me what's Gary's favourite dinner.
Pie and chips, but not cooked by Abby because she didn't put gravy on it. Still won't forget that dry tea that she made. Kit goes to see Mick in the hospital, and he does that. I think it's quite cool when they do this, where they're like, I need to speak to the prisoner alone. This shows you how many times they've had this exact scene in Coronation Street where they're like, let me speak to him alone, and the police officer is in there's like, this is against the rules, but I'm gonna leave because I can't argue with you.
Yeah.
So he talks to him and says, yeah, it was me what ordered this, and I'm gonna ring Brody and tell him that you don't want him to come and visit. And then he also says, I can take your kid and missus whenever I want.
Yes.
So Mick's just lying there going, he's got me.
He's got me. Yeah. I just don't have sympathy for either of these characters particularly. Wednesday's
Which ones?
episode,
Kit and Mick.
Wednesday's episode, just on the whole, I wasn't a big fan
You didn't like
of.
it, did you?
And by this bigger cliffhanger at the end, I was just like, whatever. Don't care.
Yeah, that was the cliffhanger. But before that happens, we do get another Swala scene where she tells Carla that Kit's admitted that he was behind the attack on Mick, but she hasn't told Bustelo, and she doesn't think she will, and because of Craig, and it's for justice for Craig. And Carla's like totally aghast at this and wants to talk about it, but Swain's like, I'm going to bed.
We do know that he's not called Bostelo, by the way, just in case there's anyone that's not been listening for this long. Just like we know that Helen Flanagan didn't sound like I made her sound at the beginning of the episode.
There's a lot of things
it's
you
a
have to
long-running
accept
thing.
about the reality of the situation that we present in this podcast.
Friday comes around. What's going on with these scallywags on Friday?
Right, so Brody has got the world's thickest sandwich in the cafe, sitting with Lou.
To be fair, we did have quite a thick sandwich ourselves for lunch today.
That sandwich was so thick, I couldn't actually. How did you like it?
Yeah, it was nice. It was lovely. It was a Korean chicken sandwich, wasn't
Fried
it? But
chicken.
Very thick bits of bread, and it did. But at least it had a nice filling to ours. Like the sandwich that Brody was chomping down at the beginning of today's episode. It just looked like it was all bread and like thin layer of paste or something. I don't know.
That was. I got that from E.L. Bakehouse in town, which is quite a nice posh bakery.
Anyway, nobody cares about that.
Oh, I do. It's delicious. So she says, look, your dad doesn't want you seeing him at the moment, and you're supposed to be revising for your GCSEs, and Mick is a proud man. He doesn't want to see him beaten up. Okay. Sarah goes to Kit's flat. She's got coffees and danishes, and they're talking about Mick's plea hearing, and she's quite confident that he's going to go down.
I just don't know why Mick is fighting this one. He knows that he's going to be.
He can, but wouldn't you?
If he pleads guilty, he's going to get a much lighter sentence than when we find out later that he's pled not guilty, hasn't he? It's going to catch up with him. It's a cop killing case. He knows that he did it in broad daylight. There's quite a high probability. There's DNA on the bat.
Yeah, I know.
Isn't there?
And Craig's blood.
Yeah. Is he just going to go all out because he thinks, well, if I go down for 20 years, I might as well go down for 30 years or whatever?
I don't know.
I
don't think he's good at making sensible judgments about the course of action to take.
He's had a bad life as Mick, hasn't he?
What exactly? What's his sob story background that we're gonna make?
Got
get out
banged
of jail
up when
free.
I was younger because my mate who was doing it with me was hiding around the corner.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot we had that flashback episode. How could I?
You left it.
Gary and Maria are talking to Liam about doing a bit more, work in the yard and doing a bit more to help out, not just crying in a cupboard because you got locked in. Mind you, if I was Liam, I'd be vindicated at this point. Like, you let me get locked in a cupboard by a murderer.
Yeah.
I'm not going back to work in your stupid yard, Dad. Or Gary.
It's so funny because I don't see Liam being a buildery type at all.
No.
It's almost like Gary and Maria have had a late night chat, off screen somewhere saying, we need to toughen him up a bit. We need to. How can we go? He's a bit of a wet blanket, isn't he? That
we need
Liam.
to get him
Should we get him to be a builder? Yeah, just mix a bit of cement. Surely that'll.
It unlocks something primal within you.
Maybe, I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
exactly,
we wallpapered his bedroom with skulls, and that's clearly not done the
didn't
job
work.
yet, has it? He's just a sensitive. I say,
He's very sensitive,
let him be as he's going to be.
Tell you what you should do. Send him to work experience with Daniel and write poems and stuff.
I think that would be a better route.
He'd
for
love
him.
it. He'd love it, about his feelings and things.
Yeah.
Also, Ed is starting working at the Builder's Yard as well. They talk
Lovely
about
to see Ed back again today. And he's a nice guy, isn't he, Ed?
I do like Ed, yeah.
Really, really love Ed.
Lou is visiting Mick in the hospital, and he tells her that it was Kit that organised this and says he is a psycho. It's all a power trip to him, and he's going to come for you next. And Lou's upset that tells him not to give up. I think that's partly why he's fighting, because he's got this kind of feels a loyalty to his family. Ed and Liam are in the cafe later. Liam's having a great time.
Oh, this is the scene where Ed's been playing a bit of a prank on him, hasn't he? I couldn't work out whether Liam actually fell for the elbow grease. That's such a cliche thing to happen. Sorry, Jan McVery, who wrote this episode, but
you've got to stick to the classics.
It's like saying go and get a left-handed paintbrush, or and Ed had sent Liam
tartan paint.
Yeah, exactly. Ed had sent him to get some elbow grease,
Blinker fluid.
And Liam's so proud of himself, and then he goes, "Hang on a minute!"
But he takes it so well, and he did it. And before Liam, Gary's too overprotective because Liam can take a joke, and he was like when Mick was teasing him by making him dump whatever that concrete powder all over himself was, he laughed it off.
Yeah.
And then Gary gets himself involved, and he kind of overparents him.
Don't make fun of my kid. He's a very sensitive lad, you know.
Yeah.
I just don't think that Liam would fall for that. I think he's smart enough to.
I don't know. I think. I don't know. Anyway, so Gary kind of gives a disapproving look, and Ed's like, "Oh, it's just a joke. I wouldn't have actually let him go to the shop to get some elbow grease," and he kind of he goes off sheepishly, and then Gary says to Liam, "Oh, I told Ed that you're having a hard time," and he's like, "Oh, why are you going around saying that to everybody?"
I'm trying to be harder here, Dad.
I'm trying to be well. Look at me. I've got my special jacket, my man jacket on. Anyway, later on, Bernie finds Lou and Brody. Jeez Louise. Brody.
We just can't say that kid's name this week, can we?
Brandy in the precinct, and tells them that Mick has pled not guilty, and Brody is not happy to hear from Lou that Kit is the one behind getting Mick beaten up, and Lou says, "I'll deal with it."
It feels like I don't know what Brody can do next, because he's already done his flat over, hasn't he? But it feels like this has gone up another level now. I suppose this is going to be the test of how much a chip off the old block Brody is. Is he going to try and enact violence against Kit? Or is he going to go after Sarah Louise, maybe?
Kidnap her. Why not? Everyone gets kidnapped many times a year.
Yeah. But I just don't get why we're trying to have any kind of... It feels like we're just on this path of redemption and sympathy for Brody, but he doesn't deserve it. He was brought in as a total arse to Dylan, and then we're supposed to say, "Oh yeah, but he's a nice chap
really,
underneath. I don't need that. Why can't he just be a bad lad?"
Really, unfortunately for Coronation Street, and we have given them stick before about bringing in two-dimensional villains who are just there for the story and have no actual motivation beyond "I'm an evil person." But unfortunately, at the moment, with what they're doing with all these juvenile men, is making excuses for bullies.
Mm.
We had that really sensitive storyline with Liam, and he was, contemplating suicide, and it's super serious. And we had people write in and tell very personal stories about their own children who had been bullied to the point of desperation by children in various situations. And I really felt such sympathy for them. And I wonder how they feel about the fact that this is now the second real bad bully that we've seen on Corrie, getting a backstory that explains their sad and tragic circumstances, and kind of hand waving, and you're right. I think Brody's kind of inevitably going to be redeemed, but I think it would be good if we just got a bully who gets their comeuppance without an excuse.
I would prefer for him to go down the Corey Brent route and end up back behind bars again. Yeah. He was kind of saying today, "I don't care, lock me back up again." He's not scared, so let's do it then.
I do feel sorry for guys, for lads, especially lads it's mostly lads who get themselves caught in this horrible trap of violence and bullying and bad behaviour and no good modelling of what to do from their family life. But we've already had a redemption for a character like that. We've had two. We had Max, we had Mason. We don't need another one.
Yeah.
What about the victims? Where do they get their justice
Well, that's
from?
why I want to see what's going to happen with this when Dylan comes out. And I
kick him in the
really
head.
want it to be a story
More
where
violence.
Dylan has the last laugh and he doesn't have to be scared of Brody being around. And
I don't know. It's just a sad kind of. It's not obviously deliberate, but when you keep telling the same story over and over again, what you're doing is reinforcing the moral even more. Which the moral is, the bullies are also the victims.
Yeah.
Right. So back at the yard, we get a really nice scene, I thought, with Gary and Ed talking about Liam and how Gary felt bad that he kind of embarrassed him.
Yeah, this was a lovely scene, actually.
And Ed's like, he really looks up to you. He copies you, and it's your dad. It's the dad's job to embarrass kids. Don't worry about it. He was just really dispensing like fatherly wisdom to Gary, and I like that scene.
Yeah, it was a very wholesome moment.
It was, yeah.
That we need a little bit more of it at times in Corrie.
And then he stabbed him in the face. Kit and Sarah in the flat. Lou comes marching in to get this confrontation out of the way, and says, "You're not going to get away with this. And also, by the way, Brody's not yours. Stay away from my son." And she speaks to Brody about this later, and he still wants to have a go at Kit himself. And this is when Kit has to have an awkward conversation with Sarah about the fact that, yes, he did get Mick beaten up. Everybody knows now. Everybody knows. And she says, "I get why, but you shouldn't have done it. And are you not worried that you're going to get in trouble?" And Kit says, "Really, my main motivation was to stop Mick from seeing Brody."
Yeah.
Do you think that there's any chance that... Do you think that the thing is about it is that Kit wants to be a good influence on Brody, but he's not as bad as Mick, but he's certainly not a good influence, is he?
Maybe Kit thinks... I think Kit knows that he's a bad lad, and maybe he thinks this is my opportunity to be a father and get away from that. Although it doesn't help that he ordered a beating up behind prison.
Do you think that he thinks that if he saves Brody, he can save himself?
Yeah, maybe. This is his chance to actually be a decent person. And he knows that he's been living the last 20-odd years when he should have gone sent down for something.
Yeah.
And this is his chance to move away from it, possibly.
He's thinks he can turn over a new leaf.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like starting a new diet. It always fails.
Anything else to that story? How are you feeling about this story this week? Because I'd say a lot of that, it just kind of went past me. I was kind of interested and intrigued by the fact that Mick got beaten up. That was probably the most moment of the week for me.
I like that, yeah.
On the whole, I'm still not feeling it.
I don't dislike these characters. I think these characters are all great. You don't, I know. I think they're all really fascinating and interesting. But again, it is just
feels like
heavy
we've seen it
focus
before
on new characters, and the story. I don't know. I really like Kit. I think that I don't know really where it's going with Lou and Mick and Brody. So that to me is interesting, because I think a lot of the time, even if I don't get it right, I think even if they trick you or do something different than you expected, if you still think a story's predictable, it's kind of tiresome. I don't think this feels predictable to me.
It doesn't. No, I don't think it's particularly predictable. Apart from, I mean, we're all saying that it's going to be the redemption of Brody. I just think the fact that I'm not predicting it is telling me that it's not getting its hooks into me yet. No. We'll have a bit of a break before long, I'm sure. I mean, Kit has dominated our screen this year. He's 100% going to be in the top 10 most featured characters this year, isn't he? But I'm sure a break and a reprieve from him will come. Julie's story. Should we find out what's been going on at number 11? So, seems like the writing is even more so by the end of this week on the wall for Eileen and George. And I feel so bad for George. He's done nothing wrong, has he? But he's for the last month or so, just been made to feel this big, and I'm really making a little pinching gesture with my
Like a
hand here.
teeny tiny man.
Like nothing to Eileen, and yes, she's had terrible times. She's grieving. She reunited with her sister only to find out that she only had a few months left. But the lack of care or affection or anything that she's showing him is really not looking good for her. I really wanted to have more moments where she's just trying with him. She's not coming out of there. I'm not watching this going, yeah, George, just ease off.
I feel sorry for both of them.
He's just trying to be nice.
To a certain
I do
extent.
feel sorry for Eileen, but
I think that she's not very good at... Oh, I mean, if you think back to her relationship, she's always had kind of a terrible time, hasn't she? Because, obviously Pat Phelan, that was terrible.
she mentioned we got a shout out for Paul the fireman in today's episode.
It's funny that he wasn't remembered as Paul the racist, which is what his main storyline ended up being. She had that Paul Kershaw.
Yeah, so that's what I mean.
Yeah, and Leslie.
Yeah, that's the same person.
Who else? I know, yeah, who else?
Jessie, obviously.
Yeah.
And, it just all went downhill from Dennis, I'm going to say. From Dennis Stringer.
I just don't think she's very good at relationships, and she I don't know. She's too wrapped up in her grief, and I think George is not playing it right because he should just give her more space.
There's only so much and so much time that he can give her, and there's only so much. He's really trying to be kind to her, but everything he does just feels like it's a mistake or that's setting her off. Yeah. Anyway, the weekend begins with Eileen and George kind of mulling over the various deaths that have been going on the street recently, and we also learn that Jason has been invited to Julie's funeral, but he can't come along. See how that turns out.
Can I, another thing I want to say about Eileen is that I am really loving how her personality is like a rock, like an impenetrable mass of like closed off misery. Because even though Julie from Beyond the Grave is trying to jolly her along with balloons and karaoke and stuff, and everyone seemed to be having a really good time at the wake, she just wasn't. Like, there's nothing you can do with Eileen. She is just like an Eeyore.
I'd like to think that she could refine some of her spark, and she was always she was always a fun-loving character, wasn't she? She wasn't, but she
Really?
in a Sarky way.
I don't think I would ever call her fun-loving.
She enjoyed teasing people. It's not being horrible. It was just kind of making smart alecky, sarky remarks, and she often had a smile on her face. Is how I kind of picture her.
But she's been miserable for years.
I hope that she can come out of it. I
just
really,
thought
really do. It's nice. It was lovely having Jason back on Friday's episode, so that we could see a bit more, life to her.
I just appreciated how true she was to herself. That even during the wake, when everyone was kind of the purpose of it was to remember Julie and memories of her and be happy about her. It's a celebration of her life. But Eileen was just like, no. Nothing's worth celebrating.
This week was just really just the build up to the wake, because we learned that the body's been released, and
I don't know why.
What do you mean?
Well, because they're still investigating.
Well, no, the autopsy results come in on Monday as well, don't they? And this is where we find out that the drugs in Julie's system were most definitely Eileen's, and but it's all been found out now. So now they're free to have their wake. Brian's there. No, Brian isn't going to come to the funeral apparently because of all the trouble that he's caused.
Well, that's a shorthand for it. It's a bit awkward.
Yeah. George later on in the episode is trying to get hold of Eileen on the phone but can't. Brian's come round and brought them an apology ham, and then Eileen walks in and says, "Look, sorry for having to go at you earlier," because they have a bit of a confrontation in the pub.
I'd love an apology
yet again. Ham. And she says, just all over the place at the moment. And at the end of the episode, we get to see Julie's order of service, which is suitably colourful and jazzy, isn't it, for the type of woman that Julie is. I wish that we had seen a bit more of the funeral, only because it could have been quite a fun one.
Well, apparently the choir was so moving.
Yeah.
I love the way that Eileen said what I said to you when she looked at the front of the order of service, and it's a picture of her and Julie on the front. She goes, "Oh no, this makes it look like I died as well." I was like, "Yes, it does."
So Wednesday's episode is more of Eileen moping around on the sofa.
I tell you what, I'd love to get my hands on a copy of that, wouldn't you?
Next time we go to the prop store,
see
maybe
if we
we
can
need
steal
to
it from somebody.
see if we can half-inch and Theo turns up on Wednesday because he's been absent for a little while, and if we remember, he's not Gemma's favourite character, is he? I still don't particularly mind him, although, like you, I wasn't particularly impressed with his attitude towards not being able to have breakfast with Millie, because he's like, oh yeah, I was supposed to have breakfast with her and she just didn't turn up.
Kids.
Anyway, like he
said it like he'd had a dentist appointment cancelled.
Yeah, I'm not feeling any kind of loss or mourning his family from Theo. He's just far more interested in his new
hanging
life
out
with Todd.
With Todd.
Yeah.
In corners.
I feel Millie and the boy, whatever he's called, I don't remember. They're really the victims in this, because and Daniel. Theo, and I know he is a victim in some way because they're trying to grab hold of this whole conversion therapy, but out of everybody involved in the Silverton family, he's the one I feel sorry for the least in many ways.
I mean, it's such a...
With the immediate drama that's been going on.
It's a really tricky situation because it's like terrible things happen to somebody that I don't really care about and I don't really like them. And all the things that terrible thing that happened to them have caused, I kind of feel like I don't have sympathy. I just don't have sympathy.
I wish that they hadn't introduced him as a cheater. I mean, he wasn't straight away, was he? He was a nice guy at first, and then a week, 2 weeks later, we find out that he's got a family.
He wasn't straight at all.
And that that just really set me up against him. You can make all the excuses you want, but he had this family that I'm sure he still loved Danielle, and 100% he must have loved his kids, and now he's just like, whatever, I'm cheating on you.
To get rid of them.
Yeah.
I really wish that we had a conversion therapy storyline with a different, more sympathetic character. I totally get that. Yeah,
that's rife for storyline potential, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we're just maybe we'll get a flashback, but it's already happened. Theo.
I just find him deeply, deeply unlikable. And
it's interesting because I don't.
His attitudes to his family is like he's been finally dumped those losers that have been holding him back this whole time.
I don't dislike
There's too much going on. There's too much going on with one character. There really is, because they added the conversion therapy, I think, because it felt like they realised he wasn't sympathetic at all. So they thought, oh, let's just add something else in, because as it was an interesting story by itself to just have a guy who had been repressing being gay. Why couldn't that have been enough of a story for them?
It doesn't feel like, even though this Noah bloke got introduced on Friday's episode, it doesn't feel like they're really going to delve that deeply into the conversion therapy side of things. And it feels like it's a couple of week distraction in the same way as like Toya's cancer was this time last year.
I also don't think it's the sort of thing that you can really...
And dead baby.
Truly understand unless you see it happening and you have real proper sympathy and a like for the character it's happening to. Because saying, oh yeah, I had conversion therapy, oh, what did he do? He prayed over me. Now, if you want to know more about conversion therapy, or you're not really sure about what it means, or maybe you don't have sympathy for it at all and you think it's all a bit silly, and maybe you think that people should have, oh, we better do conversion therapy on me, that kind of person, you're not going to get anything out of this, are you? I want to know what actually happened.
I would be interested, I think, in delving more into the character of Noah.
What did it mean? What did it mean to have... was it one session? No, probably not. Was it weekly? Was it daily? Was it for a year? Was it for 5 years? How did they measure... I don't know anything about it, and I still don't know anything about it. Except I'm supposed to feel sorry for somebody I don't really like.
Noah's kind of interesting because I don't want to be defending people that get up to this kind of thing, but it seems like they're painting him as a villain, and I would imagine, I don't know, that people who do conversion therapy don't do it kind of twirling their moustache thinking, hoo, we're so evil here. I think they would think they're doing it genuinely for a good reason.
I don't agree with it at all, but I do think that, yeah, why are we getting redemptions for bullies and stuff? But other things is like, oh no, he's just an irredeemable villain. Because conversion therapy is evil, obviously. It's a hideous, horrible thing to do to anybody, but so is bullying.
But at least with a bully, you know what you're doing is wrong. And again, I don't want to be defending people who are doing conversion therapy, but I'd be interested to know whether it feels like, Noah's been painted as somebody who's known all along that what he's doing is evil, where I would imagine that quite a lot of people who do conversion therapy truly believe that what they're doing is for good.
The greater good.
Yeah.
Like save his soul.
Yeah, exactly.
But he did say that, though. He just came across as a bit of a brainwashed cultist by going, I hate the sin but not the sinner.
Well, by the end of the episode today, though, he's kind of saying, oh, what's that? He looks like he's gonna try and be involved in getting Eileen sent down for murder, just for to stir things up a bit, to put the cat
I don't know
among
that
the
we need
pigeons.
to worry about redeeming somebody who is a conversion therapist.
I don't think we need to redeem her at all.
We've already got Billy, who's kind of representing a more progressive Christian outlook on being gay. I really want to see a scene where Billy finds out what's this guy called?
Noah.
What Noah's gotten up to. What's he gonna think? Because he obviously really likes Noah. He thinks he's a great bloke.
Yeah, I just don't want him to be a black and white villain. I'd like to see a little bit of depth to Noah.
I'd like to, but that could come out in a conversation between Billy and Noah. Couldn't it? But what I don't want it to turn into is like another lecture like we had with the assisted dying, where somebody goes, but I think conversion therapy is right. Yeah. And then he goes, well, it's not, it's wrong.
Maybe I'm just wary because it feels like that could happen, you're right. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we said all along. Like, you can't reason somebody out of a position which is quite abhorrent by dismissing them and minimising them and kind of making them into a cartoon villain. No. You have to know why is it that you believe this? Because, people sincerely do hold these very real beliefs, and that they are gross and upsetting and ruin lives. But like you said, if you don't understand why and you can't even bring yourself to represent it in a fair way, then you're never going to get anywhere with trying to challenge and tackle those opinions.
Anyway, look, let's delve back in because we've kind of gone ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Conversion therapy? What do you mean? Everyone's saying.
Eilen's having a mopey Wednesday. Theo comes round, talks about that, having breakfast for his kids, and he has a look on Todd's phone, doesn't he, for some reason or another, and he kind of stops and stares for just a second, and that's as far as we go with that.
Oh, yes,
I'd forgotten about that,
yeah.
but then it turns out on Friday that he's seen the name, this Noah, which is great. It gives him the jitters because of what he went through with him in the past.
It's a great Christian name.
Yes, it is. So Todd and George are in the Undertakers later. George is down in the dumps by Eileen, being miserable with him all the time. Todd says, look, she's just grieving. She just needs the supportive side of you right now. And he's just like, oh, maybe she doesn't need me at all. So Todd goes to the Cav office to see Eileen later.
I know you said that you think that Eileen is being a cow to George, but I think that George is willfully not reading the room.
Well, with his surprise proposal, maybe that wasn't an advisable move.
He's been saying for about a month now, I don't think Eileen really likes me anymore. No, she doesn't. Maybe one of you should bite the bullet. You know what I'm saying? If you're getting a month's worth of like bad vibes off your girlfriend, can you not take a hint at all? What?
What's he supposed to do though? Just
go,
walk out on her while she's in the middle of grieving.
Do you think maybe we should break up?
But I think maybe they have had a couple of conversations like this, haven't they? And Eileen has said, "No, look, I do like you, but I'm not."
She's just in it for the ham.
She didn't even want any at the beginning of Wednesday. Todd goes to the cab office to see Eileen later and says, "What's the deal with you and George?" He thinks that you're going to dump him, and Eileen's like, "I'm just angry that Julie died. Yeah, I've been taken out on George and I shouldn't have had. I'm going to have a word with him then." So when George comes home to Eileen later, she does apologise for the way that she's been recently, and he says, well, now that that's all sorted, we're going to go on a trip to Great Yarmouth for a few weeks after Julie's funeral.
What's there to do in Great Yarmouth for 2 weeks?
I don't know. And Eileen, that's quite sweet. They have a nice little huggy moment. And then that's basically the end of Wednesday. Friday is the funeral and the great return of one Jason Grimshaw. I really liked that scene at the beginning of the episode where George is in the chapel arrest and Julie's there with her coffin kind of half open.
You don't see inside it. He just picking her bits out.
Like he's having a look at her little trinkets. She's being
buried like an Egyptian.
Yes.
I'm surprised she didn't mummify Eileen and shove her in there as well.
This is where we find out that Julie's been a Paul Heaton fan all this time, and who knew? It was really sweet little moment with very well performed.
I think that Julie's had a better life off Corrie than she ever did on it.
Quite possibly.
Because she's had all these amazing adventures. She knows all these people. She's in what was she in? A team of sports.
Oh yeah, she was I can't remember what they said she was in now. But anyway, that was very nicely done. And then Todd comes in. They close up the lid, get her outside. Many extras, weren't there? They had a couple of main characters there to mourn Julie, but they really filled out the rest of the spaces with unnamed.
And where did she say
artists.
that she was from? She lives an hour up the road in somewhere. So these people have all come for an hour.
Yeah.
I couldn't get that many people to come to my birthday. Let alone my funeral.
How did you feel about the fact that there was kind of extra drama added on to the funeral today, rather than just being a lovely celebration of Julie? Because we had this, not only was there the Theo stuff that came out, but we also had George finding out about Eileen's inheritance. Was that Brian, finding out about the inheritance. Was that needed today?
Did he hold a grudge about it, or did he forget about it by the end of the episode? I can't remember.
I think he's probably holding a grudge a little bit.
I didn't get what. Also,
they had a bit of a fallout.
How did this come out in the letter? An awkwardly written letter.
Sorry, I'm not leaving you any money, Brian, but she is my sister after all.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, the funeral car goes off. Next thing we see is they're all back in the pub. Very nicely decorated. Fruit tarts, like you said. Yellow balloons, yellow flowers all over the place. Yeah, memory tree, exactly. Brian's come over having read the letter, and he says to
Eileen gave him a letter.
Yeah, what's going on there? And this says that you told me that there was nothing in her estate, but she says that you've got our life insurance policy. Why did you lie there? And Eileen's squirming about a little bit, and she says, look, I was shocked as you were when I found out about the policy. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this was Tracy sticking her neb in.
I'm loving
for no particular
Tracy
reason.
recently.
I mean, I don't even know why Tracy needed to be there. She was nothing to Julie, was she? She could have done the flowers. That's true. And I wondered where this was going, and it kind of, it just lit the touch paper a little bit, didn't it? But she was brilliant with all her little digs. Even talking about a podcast, didn't she? She said, you should start a podcast, Grifters and Grief. That's how we said we were going to start today's podcast and forgot about it. And she ends up getting a glass of Prosecco thrown over her. So that was all good fun.
But even Tracy is such a bitch. She's so good at it. Even when Eileen throws the Prosecco all over her, she licks it and goes, oh, Prosecco.
Yeah.
Did Julie pay for that or did you? I loved it.
That was a fun line.
And she won't give up. She's relentless. She's standing at the bar and everyone's wiping her down and she refuses to go home.
It's just because she likes the drama that Eileen's been accused of murder.
Yeah. She's just she's turning into Blanche.
Yeah.
Except she's more confrontational and aggressive.
Yeah, I would imagine that Blanche would be just have... I know
Blanche would be sitting in the corner going...
Oh, Deirdre. Did you ever hear about Eileen?
I think you killed her. Wouldn't she?
It's totally inappropriate.
Don't you think it's a bit suspicious?
Yeah, very appropriate for Tracy to have reacted like that. So
yeah.
That was all good fun. Then we see Theo getting spooked out by Noah for a little bit, but it's still a little bit not sure what's going on there until Todd finds Theo outside having a bit of a panic attack in the ginnel, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Gemma, no sympathy for him. You're watching him going, I
genuinely was still holding out hope that there's going to be a twist where it turns out that this guy is not to do with conversion therapy, but he was actually a boyfriend of Theo.
Yes,
and
you
Theo
said that,
was
didn't you? That was going to be the reveal.
He was like, oh God.
Todd's
it's all
going to know that
out.
I've had many a man, and he's
then
not my first.
It just. Oh.
Yeah, he was. It didn't feel in character for Theo to be having quite the meltdown that he was out the back.
We're supposed to get from every time a character's had a panic attack and stuff, a main character, we've known why and we've seen it, the trigger, and we've seen the origin of it, right? So, lots of characters have had them recently, but we've seen where it came from, and so we get it. We know why they're acting like that. this conversion therapy thing is still a big question mark and a blank space in my mind, and we're supposed to see his reaction and go, it must have been absolutely dreadful. And I do believe it was, but why? I'm still not getting a sense of what it was that happened.
No,
and obviously that's my ignorance, but
maybe
Coronation Street can fill in blanks for people like me who don't know anything about it. Why bring it up and then not tell you what it is?
So Theo tells Todd a little bit about what was going on there, but they end up going back in the bar. Todd is determined to confront Noah, but Theo is able to hold him back briefly from making a scene of it. And just in time for the grand return of Jason Grimshaw, who walks into the Rovers with the most cliche line of, "The Rover returns." Did anybody else roll their eyes a little bit when he said that? Surely there was really nobody bad. Watching it go, "Oh, what a clever thing for Jason to say."
I've forgotten the name of the actor.
Ryan Thomas.
I felt bad for Ryan Thomas having to trot that out.
It was just as bad as Bet's, "Give that girl a coconut."
It was a bit forced.
It must be really difficult for the writers to bring back characters in a moment of triumph like that and say, they've got to say something witty, but what can it be?
To be fair, this is the sort of clunky crap that Jason would come out with, because he's got no... he's not been making haikus on the plane, has he?
I don't know. I mean, he seems like he's chilled out a little bit.
Yeah, but he's still thick.
He is still thick, but I like that they've subtly changed his fashion sense. No longer is he wearing T-shirts with cartoon monkeys on the front. He seems to have lent right into that... where's he? Thailand? Thai lifestyle, and he's just a little bit more... bohemian in his fashion sense, isn't he?
Bit more international.
We've known for a while that Jason was going to be coming back to Coronation Street. How did his first appearance since, I think it was 2016, grab you? I'm
glad he's come back.
Yeah, we've been have we been asking? I don't know. I think in my head I've kind of felt that Coronation Street has been lacking Jason's presence for quite a while, and it was sad when he went for the first time. Maybe the character had run out of steam a little bit, but with the Grimshaw presence of Todd and Eileen still very strong on the street, not that they've had huge stories, I suppose, it's always felt like it's maybe a matter of time before he showed up again. And Ryan Thomas has kind of sworn off acting, and he's been going more down the presenting route in recent years, so it is good to see him for however long it's going to be. But yeah, how did his comeback live up to your expectations for him?
I thought it was fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm a huge Jason fan. What I would love to see is him have a scene with Kit and Sarah.
Oh, why? Oh, yeah, because obviously Sarah's got quite a history with Jason, hasn't she?
Exactly, and I want to see Kit's face when he sees the sort of man that Sarah has been dating.
What do you mean?
Well, he's going to be like, who the hell is this guy with his bloody stupid shirt on him? And he's like, he's thick as two short planks. This guy is the guy that you were crying over. What do you mean? Do you not think, I mean, could they not be more different? Kit and Jason.
Yeah.
When Kit sees Jason and knows that Sarah's got a history with him, he's going to be like, who the hell... What is wrong with you,
I would
Sarah?
really, really like for them to have a scene together, although I'm obviously off-screen, Tina O'Brien and Ryan Thomas. I don't know what the state of their relationship is at the moment, but if you believe the tabloid's been a little tumultuous in the past. But they should be professional at work, and if they need to have scenes together, then why not?
They could just have Kit see him. But also, Sarah, maybe this might knock a bit of sense into her to go, I thought when me and Jason were together, and it all went wrong, that he was the worst guy in the world, and now I'm with Kit, and Kit's like ordering beatings in prison. Maybe I should think a bit more about what kind of bloke I'm going to go after.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go after the more of Jason kind of a guy.
I thought that Jason slotted very naturally and easy back into Coronation Street, and the scenes he were in wasn't all about I'm back, here's what I've been up to. He's still... he's there with his arm around Todd for a bit of it. He's asking Eileen about what karaoke she wants to do. He didn't have loads to do, but it felt to me like he, very quickly and naturally reintegrated back into the show, which was good. I was expecting it to feel a little clunkier than it did, particularly, after all these years, and the fact that he has said he doesn't want to do acting anymore. But yeah, I liked it. I'd be really interested to know what he thinks about how Coronation Street is different now than it was when he left.
They always have opinions.
Yeah, I wonder
whether they share it is a different matter.
Anyway,
it's a bit awkward, isn't it? Because he comes in for a hug, and George is like, I just asked Eileen to marry
yes,
me.
That's right. George has just proposed to Eileen before this happened. Again, not the right moment, but if Lisa has taught us one thing, is the people on Coronation Street don't always choose the right time to pop the question.
They go, I'm feeling a strong emotion. Is it grief? Possibly. Could it be love? Yes. Let me propose now.
Yeah. But then Eileen turns to George and is like, I thought you were joking. That is so harsh and insensitive for Eileen to say.
I don't think she thought he was joking. I think she was trying to diffuse it by not hurting his feelings, but it was absolutely the wrong thing to say.
It really, really was. Yeah, poor George's face falls and he heads off, and as he goes and sits with Glenda in the bar later and says about the proposal and Eileen's reaction, Jason comes over and says, look, I don't want you upsetting my mum today. And then Tracy then gets chatting to Jason and tells her about the whole embalming fiasco. And I really wish that they hadn't brought this back up again, because we were very down on that whole route that storyline took, weren't we? Post Julie's death and the embalming tongs and the Eileen getting accused of murder. It just was really... It didn't work in the slightest for us. And the fact that it's being brought up again and being dredged up, it doesn't fill me with good feelings. But I suppose the reason that it was brought up here is so that Noah could overhear it, and later on in the episode he's going to be able to try and use that as a bit of emotion, a bit of blackmail fodder, possibly. I don't know. Anyway, what goes on there? Karaoke time. They're doing it a little bit too much, leaning into the karaoke.
It's because we were rude about all the fancy dress parties. And they went,
now it's karaoke all
you want to see something more obnoxious than that?
We see Billy introducing, in inverted commas, Noah to Theo and Todd, and they have to stay quiet about it. And Todd ends up...
going up with Eileen to make a speech about Julie.
Oh yeah, they do the speech, which is very nice.
And he uses it to have a dig at Noah.
Yeah, I can't remember what he says. It's like all these people here that really... Oh yeah, Julie was so accepting. There's some people that wouldn't even give me and Theo the time of day. Some people think that gay people shouldn't exist.
And Noah's like, yeah, that's right.
This is why I was kind of half thinking I wish that today had just been about Julie rather than using it as an opportunity to shoehorn in another bit of a story.
But okay, everyone knows I love Julie. I was so excited when she came back. I was so sad when she died. But the show's never about one person, and Julie was only in the show for like how long? 2 months. I'm surprised they gave her as big of a send off as they did. I'm glad they did, but it can't just be about.
Anyway, so that goes. There's just like little bits. Eileen ends up going home because she has another bit of a falling out with George. The main confrontation between Todd and Noah happens a bit later on outside the pub, and Noah says, look, we're just trying to get Theo on the right path, and Todd says, well, you've screwed Theo up for life now, thanks for that, which of course Theo overhears as well.
And then Theo goes off sad.
Yes, now that he thinks that Todd believes him to be a screw up.
What? Okay, you can have breakfast with your kids.
Yeah.
Because they hate you. Is that not screwed up?
Yeah, but
I know it's not his fault, but it's still like you're not in the best of places, are you?
Yeah, well, he ends up smashing a glass later, doesn't he? Todd finds him out the back, and Theo's brooding there, and he uses his big arms to smash a glass in frustration because of everything. It's all bringing back horrible memories. Maybe he's going to have some flashbacks. If only they filmed it so that he had something to flashback to.
Flashbacks, we would get to see.
I'm sure it's to come. We also have the scene of Noah doing a bit of digging with Steve about the whole situation that he's going to be using later.
He's just not an established enough character for me to get from him what they want me to. That's all I'm saying.
End of the episode comes round, and Eileen's having a cry on the sofa, ignoring calls from George. So he ends up walking around himself, and they they have a bit of a conflab, and George says, right, fine, maybe today wasn't the opportune moment for me to go down on one knee to you, but maybe I'll ask you again when the timing's better. And Ina says that, sorry, George, this is nothing to do with timing. I just don't want to marry you. I wish I did, but I don't.
What about Great Yarmouth?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be an awkward little holiday. I hope that he's got, I hope he ticked the box to me to get the refund on it, because that's not going to be the most
I'd
fun
go by
holiday,
myself.
is it? And you've got.
And the worst thing about it was he didn't go through Hayes Travel.
He did. Well, he couldn't, could he? Because Hayes Travel doesn't exist anymore.
Not on the street.
No, I'd forgot. I didn't know whether that had been in the news before. Like, usually, when one of the businesses disappears on Victoria Street, we expect it coming.
But I don't know.
Maybe it hasn't. I've totally forgotten about it. But yeah, you pointed out. Hang on a minute.
Where's Hayes?
The travel agents has been blocked up, and I was surprised.
Is that the first time it's been? Would we have noticed?
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm questioning myself now.
Well,
it's the first time I noticed it today. Anyway,
I think they're really, really going through businesses at a worrying rate in Rosamond Street at the moment. That was the one that was. Was that the one? Yeah, that
Costa.
was.
It's only been 3. How long has that been open for?
Not many years.
Yeah,
like
but
10 years maybe.
But, okay, the contracts.
No, it's not even been that.
The contracts are clearly on an annual basis.
Yeah, it just feels like they're shuffling through them, and it feels unrealistic to have that many change of businesses on the street. And it also doesn't look good that the sponsors are pulling out after a year. I mean, there's one.
It wasn't a year, was it? It's more than a year.
I'm pretty sure Hayes was only in it for a year. Yeah, and if the news is to be believed, we were going to get a free holiday off
them, weren't we?
Yeah.
What's the point of this?
If the news is to be believed, there isn't anything in the wings to fill the slot.
That's the worry. There's quite a lot of money that's missing from the budget.
There was a report that we read after we watched the episode today that says that allegedly Coronation Street are trying to get a £1 million deal to have a sponsor there for a year, and that's apparent. I don't know how much these things should cost, but apparently that's an awful lot of money, and nobody wants to take them up on it.
Yeah, but they're not gonna. It was for the Mirror, I think.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna write a story where they're like, "Don't worry, it's fine." Of course, they're gonna go doom and gloom.
Well,
I don't think it's a bad prospect. And they were saying, "Oh, viewing figures have gone down." Yeah, but look at the streaming figures.
Yeah, apparently they've gone up, haven't they? So I
If you could have any shop there, what would you have?
We've had discussions like this before. I don't even know. I think Stickers try and get Costa back in again.
What was
nobody ever goes into it, so it doesn't really matter.
Is there a chain? What's that? PetSmart? Is that a chain?
Maybe.
Or a McDonald's?
I don't. Oh god, imagine a McDonald's.
KFC.
I don't know. But keep our eye out for that. I'm sure one day soon
we'll get something in there, even if it's.
It's just yet another worrying thing about ITV's financial situation.
Again, it's the sharks. The sharks are circling, and nobody writes a good news story, do they?
No. What else did we? So I'm happy that Jason's back. I really enjoyed Glenda fancying him, but yeah, we'll see what goes on there. Yeah. You're right. Having some kind of meet back up again with Sarah could be interesting, I suppose.
Yeah, and this conversion therapy thing, and Noah, like you saying, you didn't want it, you wanted him to be a bit more 3-dimensional. I totally get why you're saying that, but I also get why they haven't done it. And
it's just I can imagine a scene where Billy kind of realises, but you're actually evil. And he's like, yes, I've been evil all along.
I thought we were all evil.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get. You're always quite defensive, aren't you, of how.
Well, it's just it's
religious people are portrayed.
Yeah, so many religious people on Coronation Street turn out to be nut jobs,
unhinged, evil geniuses.
Yeah, and
I don't know that we need really to have a backstory of why somebody wants to do conversion therapy. I would like just to know a bit more about. I just don't like. I'm sorry, but I don't like Theo. I can't wait for him to go. I think he's bad for Todd. I think he is a terrible parent. I think a lot of people would do anything they could to get their kids back on their side. He seems to be relieved whenever he doesn't have to have a breakfast with them.
And
I
thought I was at the beginning feeling the chemistry between Todd and Theo, but
no, I cannot feel it at all.
I'm not so.
When
much
I see
now.
Todd draped all over him, and Gareth Pearce is doing a fantastic job of looking besotted with Theo, I just think, oh God, it's so creepy. I feel bad for you, Todd, because this guy is just no good. He's just like, danger. It's like everyone's had that moment where their friend has had a boyfriend that you despise and cannot see what they're seeing in them, and every time you see them cozying up, you're like, no, you're going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I feel that way with Todd and Theo.
Well, that's what I'm feeling about Sarah as well. If only somehow we could make it work so that Sarah and Todd could get together again, but
okay.
I don't think that that's on the cards, but they've got the best chemistry.
Right.
Just in a platonic way now.
We have to really speed up now because I want us to catch the train.
We do need to go to London this evening or this afternoon. So
are we going to stop now, or are we going to try and plough through?
Let's plough through, because I don't think either of us are full of opinions bubbling over.
Exactly an hour before we have to catch the train.
Okay. I don't think that we've got loads to say about this story.
Slight bit of stuff to organise
right,
and drive there.
What's going on with old Carl and Ronnie Bailey then this week?
Okay, so Debbie wants Ryan's opinion to get back in shape because we know he is a steroid user and a buff DJ.
Yeah, Debbie is kind of a bit in denial about the. Is she in denial, or is she just feeling? I know that this is the way that it's going, so at least I want to go out being my best self.
I've been in a situation like this where you have a health thing and you're like, oh yeah, I can just do what it says on the leaflet and I will be fine. And I don't know
whether she thinks that. I don't think it's complete denial. I think that it's.
I don't know. I think she's doing what's expected of her, isn't it?
Yeah, apart from telling her family.
She says, "I want to meet my true potential," and so she haggles him down to personal training sessions for £20 a time. Ronnie comes in and he's chosen. Well, Chariot Square is where his friend is staying, Fiona,
yes.
And Debbie is just disgusted with this because these two people obviously have got a history, and she's kind of, why have you chosen here to rub it in my face?
We learn a little bit about Ronnie's backstory here that seemed to be invented off the cuff for this particular week of storytelling, and that he used to be a bit of a bad lad back in the day and would get up to naughty scams.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose we saw a bit of Ronnie's bad side with the whole insider trading story a couple of years ago, didn't we?
Yeah, that's well remembered. Yeah, I mean, Ronnie... Fiona's a bit of a minxy kind of business lady, isn't she? She's a bit of a dodgy business lady, and so she has a chat with her, and they've got this kind of thing going on, haven't they? And Debbie sort of talks to Ronnie about this, and she's obviously got her nose put out of joint about this and is jealous. But she can't really let on too much because it was her idea to end the relationship.
Yeah, she does.
And
she
Ronnie's
ended the
still
relationship
asking
despite still being in love with
she
Ronnie.
loves it.
So it's not like, how dare you move on from me so quickly. It's like, I really wish that I could still be with you, and now I'm seeing you cozying up with this sexy lady.
She's like, oh, enjoy your date. Like, she's getting all kind of annoyed.
Yeah, she huffs off quite comedically.
Carl is having some money problems on the phone, and Ronnie is talking to Ryan at the bar, and when Carl finishes his phone call, he tells Ronnie to bugger off because he's upsetting Debbie, and bars him from the hotel, and they kind of like square up, and Ryan has to kind of cool them down, and Ronnie's like, oh, what happened to me and Debbie? I don't know. So then Debbie meets Ross at Speed Dial, and we haven't seen Ross before, but we learn that he is from the dementia support group, and it seems like Debbie had a kind of interaction and didn't really want, it's kind of like balked at it, but now she's opening back up to it again. So she chats to him, and she's like saying, this was so heartbreaking because it does feel like she thinks she can stop what's going to happen to her by exercising and sleeping better, and maybe you can a bit. And she's saying, I think
she just thinks that she wants to live the best quality life while she still can.
Oh, I'm in remission, I think, because I haven't had any symptoms. And he kind of like, the look that he gives her is like, you haven't still accepted that this is beyond your control.
Yeah. He also asked her about what her friends and family think, and she's like, oh yeah, I've told them, but
yeah, they've been super, and he's like, how is your partner? And she's like, Well, I don't have one at the moment. So she approaches Ronnie in the bistro and tells her that him that maybe it's better if you don't come to the hotel anymore because it's not good. It's not good for us. And Ronnie asks her about this guy, Ross, like this bloke that I saw you with. Are you seeing him when we were together? And she's like, no, he doesn't believe her. And she says, look, I still care about you. And then he's like, oh, well, I hope you and Ross are happy together. And she walks off and he calls Fiona going, okay, I'm up for whatever it is you want to do. I'm up for it. And for some reason, oh my God, so these two people, they're both well dressed. They both look professional. They both look like they know what they're doing. They're business people. They've been, doing whatever they've been doing for years. But for some reason...
I still think it's hilarious that Ronnie has been in the show for this amount of time and all we know is that he does business.
He does business, right? But for some reason, these two people are trying to sell a car that's not a very good car. What is the profit margin on selling a dodgy car?
It can't be much.
Exactly. This reminds me of an episode of The Apprentice, right? Where you get all these these people who've got all these business plans and all these ideas, and they come out, they speak, they talk the talk. They're so full of themselves. They think they're the next big thing. They're going to be the next Alan Sugar, and then you get them on a stall trying to sell sausage rolls, and they can't do it. These two people cannot sell this dodgy car for love nor money.
Well,
and
Ronnie
then what
just
they're going to
has
make, like
crisis of conscience,
£100, £100 each for it. What? Okay. What the hell? It just was... It's like Coronation Street couldn't think of a business. Like, how do people make money? I don't know. Sell cars? Dodgy cars?
It's just the thrill of it, isn't it? And obviously the main reason is because they wanted Carl to get involved, so then having it something automobile related.
It just feels like such a stupid, half-baked money, like so risky. Could they not use their amazing business brains to, like, I don't know, start an actual business? Maybe that's too crazy. So he's like not very keen, but he takes the key and he ends up having this bloke come. And of course, this is not just a normal car sales session, is it? This man has a sob story. He's got an 18-year-old daughter. She's sad because his mum is sick. Her mum is sick. And Ronnie goes, no, mate, sorry, you're not having the car because it's too sad that your child might die in a fiery car crash.
Yeah, because he knows that the car's likely to...
blow up or
spontaneously
something.
Combust to the moment it goes round the corner.
Yeah, so
who should be there but Carl?
Carl's like, what's going on? And Ronnie was like, nothing's going on, don't worry about it. And he knows that something's dodgy is going on, and he says, look mate, because he's drunk at this point, isn't he?
It's slightly,
Ronnie's been drinking,
drunk,
and Carl says to him, you can't drive, I'll dump the car somewhere, I'll tell Fiona to go and get it, and I'll sort it all out. So Ronnie agrees and texts Fiona and tells her that he's out of the deal. She's going to have to find somebody else to get rid of this. So who's that other person be but Carl? He meets up with Fiona in the hotel. He says, I talked Ronnie out of delivering the car. He was drunk. You can't rely on him, but you can rely on me because I love dodgy cars. I love doing weird things for money.
I'm a villain too. I'm a woman.
I have access to a garage. I run a garage, and if you want any dodgy MOTs, let me know. I will help you out, and it will be the easiest money you ever make. Now, this actually makes sense. I don't know how much money you could really make out of doing dodgy MOTs, but it makes more sense than just one by one selling cars to individual people.
Yeah. Well, he's got to get his money somehow, hasn't he?
The thing is about Ronnie is that we've been given and kind of to Debbie, because they're both on a par with each other, we've been given the impression that Ronnie is kind of so successful, he's doing multi-million-pound like property development deals and things, and then he's selling a used car to a guy who cries about his daughter having a sick mum, and he backs out of it immediately, and it's too.
I don't know whether it's just the case that he's kind of harking back to the good old days when he could get a bit of extra cash by doing this, and he thought, well, maybe this is going to take my mind off Debbie. Or
the thing is, though, has he not got a business that he could run that he's making more money off of than he would ever make selling a dodgy car to somebody?
Quite possibly.
And taking a cut of he hasn't bought the car, so he's not getting however much that is. Fiona's going to get a cut. Whoever delivered the car is going to get a cut. What's he going to get out of this? £100?
Well,
I don't get out of bed for
it was
£100.
it was a means to an end, and that end
it
is
was-
Carl is now doing.
It just
dodgy
felt
stuff
like a
at the
bit of a
garage.
clunky way to get to Carl wants to do dodgy
Well, this
MOTs.
whole thing seems like a clunky way to get to Carl and Abby are going to have an affair, and it's like I still think it's going to happen, but I was expecting it to happen about 2 months ago. You know, Abby is just resisting, and one of these days it's just going to be okay,
my
right?
pants
Stick
fell
your tongue
down.
in my mouth, yeah.
Right, so
He's just being odious on at the garage with her on Friday.
he's an irredeemable bummer, isn't he?
He's really, really horrible. He's
nasty.
He's just, and again, this is just
But he's
a
still quite
problem
charming.
that I've got with Corrie this week, because we got Theo, who, you know, despite having, you know, a bit of a nasty past, is unlikable. You got Kit's unlikable, Mick's unlikable, Brody's unlikable, Carl's unlikable, and these characters are the ones that have been front and
But he's
centre in
got
this week's
charisma.
Coronation Street.
He's got charisma.
Who does? Carl?
Carl, yes.
I don't say. I put him just as the same as Kit in my mind. There's just
don't like
something
them.
about those characters that
Okay,
I
who-
don't find enjoyable to
Right.
watch.
Okay, pretend that you are a pansexual being with no boundaries. Who would you rather have an affair with, Carl or Theo? If they both come
Well,
on to you.
Theo does have nice arms.
Really? Because I think Carl's way more charming
I don't find Carl charming
and
whatsoever.
charismatic than Theo.
That's funny, no.
Would you? So you're going Theo?
If I have to pick one, it's going to be Theo.
Okay. And obviously the boundaries are not but wanting to cheat.
I don't know. I don't
On
find
me, on me.
I don't find either of
Because
them.
I would be very disappointed in you.
There's something about both of these characters that just I'm not gripped in the same way as I've been with other similar characters in the past.
At least Carl's got a bit of heritage.
They both just seem slimy.
At least Carl's got a bit of history behind him, even though he's never been in it before. At least we know he existed before he rocked up.
I just don't like how he's come in to cause trouble with characters
They
that I
always
like.
do. They always do. Right, we've got to get on with it. So, Friday, Abby is surprised that Carl is in the garage doing a bit of work on a car. And he's like, yeah, I've been doing this the whole time in Germany, which I guess it's news to all of us. I didn't know what Carl actually did
No,
in
I
Germany,
don't
but
know.
apparently he's been doing car things. And Carl has to help out, and he gets a dodgy phone call. He kind of gets Abby to go and buy him some lunch, and it's sexy and steamy.
There's
with her.
not much that happens here,
And
is
then
there?
he gets the van and
yeah.
does a. She's like, "What? Have you done an MOT already?" And he's like, "No more questions."
His dodgy side hustle just gets started today, and there's more of Abby. The one side being disgusted by him, which she rightly should be, but also just giving him looks, isn't she? She's just giving him a few
I know.
smouldering glances.
It really
or-
reminds me a bit of all the, the 1950s romance kind of movies where the woman would be like, "Oh, you're such a cad. I'd never love a man like you." And he'd be like, "Come here, darling, and give me a kiss." And she'd be like, "Okay."
Yeah, I was just a bit disappointed this week that the Debbie story wasn't really about Debbie. And it's not been about Kevin for ages, has it? He's just
Kevin,
quietly
what?
going through
Cancer?
his chemotherapy.
Whatever.
Oh, yeah,
Boring.
he did shave his hair off today. He had a little bit, didn't he? But yeah.
Poor Kevin.
So at least they paid lip service to the fact that he was the one that started this whole story off with his cancer. And then all we had apart from that this week is the Swangagement story, which we've kind of already gone over already. Unsurprisingly, Carla has not answered Lisa's proposal, or at least said yes by the beginning of Monday's episode. Lisa seems particularly narked off by the fact that Carla's not falling at her feet.
Can I just give a big props to the scene where Lisa and Carla are having this lunch date, and Lisa is just being a bit of a petty bitch about it, and taking offence at everything that Carla says, and I completely identify with this. This is what I'm like. And I love that I really like the way that they don't... Lisa's a very sympathetic character, but she doesn't always... She's kind of a bit prickly, isn't she?
I was going to say she's a bit spiky,
that.
a bit prickly.
I really like that about her, that she's very guarded and very defensive, and Carla is so gentle and probing, and she's trying to get her break out of this shell, this defensive, this kind of wall that she's built up. Because being a copper, you've got to put on a front, haven't you? And I think that Carla's got to kind of break these defences down.
It is a bit of fair play to Carla because she doesn't need to do this. She could at any point go,
Whatever.
"You're too high maintenance for me, Lisa." So she's
I
clearly
think
invested in this.
It is a really interesting relationship. I do really, I know that some people still have got a problem with the fact that Carla was such a man-eater and now she's with a lady. But I think the dynamic between the two of them is really interesting, and I think they're both playing it pretty well.
Yeah, they are playing it well. I can't blame Carla for being a bit hesitant about, saying yes. And
because it came off the back of a big trauma.
Yeah, but it just feels like at the beginning of the relationship when Lisa was the one that was pushing it more. And
I don't know. I also, if I was Lisa, I don't think I'd rush into marrying Carla, just because I would kind of be a bit upset that I'm like, what, number 5? I don't even know, 4, 3.
Yeah. Anyway, they just have a bit of a chat about it, and Carla says, look, I'm sorry about my reaction to all of this. I do love you. Maybe one day I can see myself getting married, but it's got to come out of love, not grief. And
that's a good quote.
And that was kind of it. And then we saw a little bit, as we say, of them on Wednesday with Carla having to look after poor sneezy Lisa.
And she's
disinfecting the remote control,
yeah.
which is quite funny. Anyway.
I like how patient Carla. I don't think Carla's been this patient with any partner she's ever had.
No, she's not got no time for it.
I think it's really sweet, and I really like that they've not leaned it, because I know that they've got a massive fan base, all those signets out there, and I think that it would be really tempting to lean into just making them perfect. But I think that that's one of the reasons why a lot of Swallow fans like their relationship, because they're not perfect, and Coronation Street has done and also the actresses, obviously, Ellie King and Vicky Myers are really good at portraying this very kind of complicated, even at the early stages, quite a complicated relationship between these two women.
Yeah, but I don't think they need to rush to getting
Everybody
married.
wants them to get married this year.
Is that the way that
I really do think
the wind is blowing?
If by the end of the year, I think if Lisa and Kyra are not married, I will be quite surprised myself. What do you think?
I wouldn't surprise me. It doesn't mean that I think it's necessarily the right thing to happen.
I don't agree. I think that if you want to marry somebody, do it.
Well, we didn't, did we? We were engaged
we had
for
to
7
save
years.
up. That's what we would have got married straight away if we had the money.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, that was that for this week's Coronation Street. I'm going to say there weren't many, big scenes of the week, were there? Kind of standout, memorable moments, at least compared to last week where we had Craig's death and the flashback scene we were talking about.
We had the shocking moment when Mick was on the floor.
Yeah, I suppose there was that, wasn't there?
So what are you going to give it then?
I don't.
Because we've got a train.
It's still going to be relatively low. Did I give 2.5 last week?
I'm going to give this week 3.5 apology hams out of 5. And my character of the week is Noah. No, I'm joking. I don't know. Who is my character of the week?
That's a difficult one.
Are you going to score it?
I'm going to give it... I didn't... I don't think there was anything that really had me, hooked for any of it. I think that I was really happy that Jason was back, but a lot of this week was just kind of... the action is going on in front of my eyes, and none of it is really eliciting that much of a feeling of joy or how I'm loving watching this. But it wasn't bad. It was just okay, fair to middling. I think I'm gonna go 3. I'm gonna give it 3 skeletons in Bernie's closet out of 5. My character of the week this week.
I think I'm going to give this to Kit, because Kit's been a real protagonist/antagonist of the week. He's really made a lot of things happen. He's been very complicated. I want to see where it's going with him. I know that he's not super popular, so maybe that's why I'm picking him.
I think I'm going to go with Gary this week. It's been nice to see him back in the forefront of the show again for a little bit. I like how he was one of the only people to give the time of day to Lou, and yet he still was able to make up with Maria by the end of the episode. I really enjoyed his scene with Ed in today's episode by the building yards. It was not a week where many characters were competing for the top spot, but I think Gary is who I'm going for.
Oh, nice.